Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Brap. Happy to be back. We got a great show tonight, by the way. We have two returning guests and a new guest, first-time guest, joining us tonight. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor, hit that like button. We have about 100 people watching right now, so please smash that like button. I'm also going to drop a link here in the comment section, the live chat, I should say. Please retweet or post the link on your favorite social media platform. Let everyone know that we are live. But we do have a lot to talk about. We're talking about the U.S. Congress going after PlayStation for apparently making it for Sony making it hard for Xbox to compete in Japan. We're going to talk about Diablo IV, about the last weekend's open beta, give our impressions on that. And then we're going to talk a little bit of E3 and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the new gameplay that Nintendo showed yesterday. So we're going to get into that. But joining me this evening, we do have a first-time guest. We have Lono from Reforge Gaming. Lono, welcome to Brap, sir. It's a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the invite and excited to talk about stuff tonight.
Absolutely. Looking forward to getting your takes on the topics this evening. And then we have a returning guest, the man of many thighs. Oh no, it's Alex. What's up, Alex?
Hey. Oh, Alex is fine. What's up? It's Wednesday. Look, I'm literally missing AEW for you, so.
Well, I actually have AEW playing in the background right now, so I'm kind of like watching it while I'm streaming.
Just letting you know that what I'm doing here for you.
Okay. Alex, are you watching WrestleMania this weekend?
Yeah, I do want to see what happens with the Usos and Sammy. It's just gonna be like Cody's gonna win it.
Nope.
Yeah, and Owens and Zayn are gonna win it as well, and then the bloodlines are gonna fall apart, and then they're gonna create like another faction, probably.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see. I don't think Cody's gonna win it, but I could be wrong.
Dude, Cody's gonna win it.
It would be great, right? But I don't know. So, and then we have a returning guest, former regular panel member, Game Logic. What's up, Logic?
Not much at all.
All right. So let's talk shop here, gentlemen. E3, E3 2023. We have another publisher. Ubi-Soft is no longer attending E3, amongst many other publishers and folks in the industry. Tencent won't be there. I almost went to E3. I've never been, but I almost went in 2020, and then something called COVID hit, so I didn't get the opportunity to go. Actually, I was going to was renting a house with the Iron Lords, and so we were going to fly out there to Los Angeles, hang out. Unfortunately, that never happened because of COVID, and I was kind of bummed out at the time. But now, the way E3 is looking, I'm like, maybe PAX East is where I need to be. Maybe that's where I need to go. But in light of the news of Ubisoft and Tencent not being there, and I'll go to you first, Lono. What are your thoughts on E3? I mean, there's some reporting coming out of IGN that maybe that this thing could be canceled, perhaps, maybe. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think with also rumors swirling about like Sega and Tencent backing out, I would say that this thing is done. I don't see how they can have the event. I don't see how they can do it. The biggest problem, I think, is they just didn't adapt. I was there in 2019. I was main stage hosting with Twitch and just doing interviews and stuff. And I remember thinking that was so expensive. LA is just a garbage can. Nobody wants to go there. And beyond that, I just think, why would you not adapt to the larger viewing audience, the people watching at home? I don't know. I feel like they focus too much on the in-person stuff. And this is why I think Jeff Keighley he's just putting them down, in my opinion. He's taking them behind the woodshed.
Yeah, it almost seems like Keighley's definitely seizing the moment. He actually, and I forget who it was, who was reporting and tweeting an IGN on behalf of IGN about E3. Keighley actually responded to that tweet and said, "Solid reporting" or something to that effect. So, yeah, I mean, he's probably rubbing his hands together right now. But this potentially bodes well for him, I think. So, but it's unfortunate. There's a lot of memories, at least for me as a gamer, and Lona, you were there in 2019, and But for me, somebody who's never been, there's just a lot of great memories of E3. And, and it was kind of like, for me, it was kind of like the holidays in June. It was kind of like you look forward to these big announcements. And, I remember when Sony had that one E3 where they just had all these reveals and the excitement of that particular E3, and then the announcement of the consoles and things like that. And who can, I don't know how many people remember the E3 1990. I think it was 95 when Sony came out and said $299, and that was it. That was kind of the mic drop moment. The announcement of the price of the PlayStation. So, for me, there's some nostalgia there. I don't want to see it go away, but I think to your point, Lona, like LA's expensive. It's far away. I think things like PAX East have been kind of have been places where gamers allow a little more access to gamers, and I've seen it pick up a lot of popularity over the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of navigate this. But Alex, what are your thoughts about E3 2023?
I feel like E3's already been down that spiral for quite some time, even before COVID, in my opinion. Mostly because we've seen just like the big rise of like directs and stuff like that, and everybody really just putting out their own message and not needing to be there in person. Of course, the advent of the internet doing that too. But I think Lono's totally 100% right. It is the lack of actually just adjusting to the times and still charging a massive amount of money for floor space that nobody's going to use. And I think that's really where everybody's like, why are we going to spend this money when we could just put the same message out online through our YouTube page, control the message, not have any issues, and then just like have a good reception to it. And I think that's a big thing. Like, you guys remember Mr. Caffeine on the Ubi-Soft stage?
Mm-hmm.
That was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, there's nostalgia to it, but I think at some point we just got to say to ourselves, like, is this really worth it? And I don't think companies are saying it's worth it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think, Alex, you bring up a great point. There's something to be said about not having to pay for that floor space, and with the advent of the internet, being able to kind of control your messaging, get your messaging out there, reach a lot of people through things like YouTube, and have a lot of impact that way.
I mean, it's always going to be sad to not hear Reggie say, "That's Sony's problem, not mine."
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just those like really memeable moments, but
or the game sharing,
or the game sharing, or stuff like just stuff like that, where you're just like, God, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But E3 back in the day was still mostly like it was more about like sales figures and numbers and like almost like an investor show a lot in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had like the stuff around that too.
Yeah. Game Logic, what are your thoughts about E3, man?
I just feel like it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, the news cycle this week about the cancellations just became kind of a running joke amongst the peanut gallery. And and that was fine, but I also don't know that those jokes are that relevant, right? In a post-COVID time, and even in the time leading up to COVID, the relevance of a physical in-person stage show for gamers, I just felt was already on the wane. I mean, even for our show and lots of podcasts who like cover it in detail. Like, I mean, when we've covered E3 in the past, I mean, we would kind of do the same thing, and both, my current show and other organizations I've been part of, we would do the same thing that the major online websites would do. We would set up a big war room, and coordinate coverage of everybody who was going to watch stuff and take notes and put the show together and yada yada yada. And even before COVID, I mean, there were years of E3 that I was like, Jesus, like I do not feel like flipping doing this again, because this is a side gig, right? It's not the regular job. And so, and then in this era where Keeley's doing a lot of stuff, the problem, if you want to call it that in air quotes, is I don't have any semblance of like what the separation is between like what show is what show. So now the summer of gaming is just like a 1 week or 2 week block where there's just a lot of crap going on. And I don't know if it's part of Keeley's show or part of somebody else's show. And at the end of the day, as a as a gamer and a consumer, and even somebody who's tracking the news, I don't know that it matters, right? It's just there's a consolidated point of time for the most part. It's better now than it was when it first all broke apart. The big problem was that there was like a week, there were like 2 weeks like every month, and they were all at separate times, and everybody was doing their own thing, and you were constantly churning. But at least now we've gotten it down to where there's kind of predominantly consolidated block of time, and I don't know if it really matters, right? If it's part of Keeley's show or Devolver Digital's doing their own thing or whatever. I think the positive thing about it is it's a time when we stop focusing, for the most part, not everyone, but it's a time when we stop focusing on the rumor, the drama, the gossip, and the bullshit, right? And actually focus on the gaming news cycle, and what companies are showing, because, at this point we just have no real clarity on the release slate, right, in its entirety for the rest of the year. And so, it'll be a nice consolidated chunk of time where that's kind of the hyper focus, and we can stop all the time that we've expended this first part of this year worrying about Fable getting rebooted, or Sony reducing their PSVR 2 numbers but not really reducing their PSVR 2 numbers, and whatever cockamamie crock of crap that Bloomberg is spouting off about that they've gotten wrong, so that they can get punked by $1 trillion company, right, and asked to redact their article.
Damn, tell me how you really feel, bro.
No, well said, Game Logic. No, I mean, Logic, you talked about the coverage by media not being by some sites not necessarily being on par per se. I think Lona, you talked about that on your show as well. So, but no, it's Microsoft is going to have a June show. I think right around the time of E3, if I'm not mistaken, correct? They're just not going to have a physical presence, floor presence at E3. Am I understand that correctly?
I think so. Yeah.
Wait, who are you? Which show are you asking
who you
about?
talking
I'm talking about Microsoft.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing a Microsoft showcase on a Sunday, and then the Starfield showcase follows it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and no word on Sony just yet, but there's a rumor going around Sony's going to have something potentially maybe May, some kind of showcase, but we'll see if that happens. Again, nostalgia. I don't want to see it go away, but I think it's time. It's seen better days, unfortunately, and it's just going to be one of those bucket list items that I just didn't have the opportunity to do. So
if only like they would have just adjusted and like done something different, or like move themselves to like say, hey, here's a value that we can do besides that. We would still have that today. We'd still get hype for it. It just seems kind of shitty that it's almost like they're moving in slow motion compared to everybody else.
Yeah,
and I think Keeley just pulled the rug out from under them. Really, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, do you think, Alex? Like, do you think that maybe if they rotating locations, do you think maybe that would have done any difference or any good for E3 instead of having it at LA every year? It used to be at one point, I think, in Atlanta. At one point,
I think maybe. I don't know if locations would have been it, but maybe just like, oh man, I don't know. I think E3 is having an identity crisis is really what it is. Like they don't know what they want to do, or they don't know what they want to be, is what it sounds like. They don't know if they want to be investors. They don't know if they want to be for people coming in. Like, wasn't last year where they like let people in just like random?
So they did that for. They did that for a few years, and so one of the last kind of heaving death swells or whatever of change in E3 was.
I love like, just like the verbiage of just like, oh, let me just explain this to you in like the most horrifying way possible.
Well, let's roll back the tape, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who are familiar with the history, and so the intention is not to be patronizing, right? But E3 came out of the thing that used to just be CES, and so the video games people would show up in LA in January with all the electronics folks and the adult entertainment industry.
Did they have a big presence at like E3 last year? Like,
CES has historically been when it was, because that was also when the adult entertainment industry was doing their show, and they were both
when the
like
AVNs.
co-located. Yeah.
I don't know anything about
When
that, Alex.
AVN was around. Mhm.
So they used to do it all together in January, and then the video game part broke off and eventually became E3. And E3 had historically been, just like CES, predominantly is. It's really a trade show. So it was really never for consumers. And for a long time, E3 was just access to the media. And then it hit a point where they started allowing the public in, but that would be like on like the last day or something like that. And then in the last set of changes before it just went away, they had kind of played around with that mix, and there was a point where I think they just gave everyone access for all 3 core days or whatever, and so there were still kind of the pre-days of when the industry and some of the companies would show up on the Sunday before the event actually started in the Monday. And then the public was let in, and so then the media had to kind of fight with the public, and they were managing that in different ways, where there were still kind of roped off areas where it was only media access and things like that. But then I think at the end they went back to one of 2 formats, where either the public was let in first and then they were kind of sent away and the media had access to themselves, or the media had access initially and then the public eventually came in on the second or third day or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they came in like second, third day. That's right.
What a weird. Wasn't there like a fight that broke out too?
I don't know. I know there was
That 1 year.
I remember the tales of the BO though, from E3.
The BO.
Yeah, bad.
Oh, dude, BO is just. That's just a regular occurrence, bro. Like, for some reason, people just don't want to shower. Like
My
down in
God,
Florida. Dude, down in Florida, bro, it's
Yeah.
like if you go to any con down here, it's 95 fucking degrees on like a good day. So if you're not even wearing anything close to like deodorant, you're just gonna get called the fuck out. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Well,
It's
Alex,
too hot, bro.
no, I get it. It is hot. My folks are down there right now, and it's like 85 degrees down there.
I go to the mailbox right 10 feet from my house, and
You're
I got
just
swamp
pouring
gas,
sweat.
for Christ's sake. Just fucking dripping.
No, you got to carry a bottle of water with you, Alex, just to go to the
Dude,
mailbox.
It's fucking bad.
Yeah.
It's fucking bad down here.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's yeah. I just think this thing's dead man walking at this point. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, if they can even turn this around. So we'll see. I do want to move on to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because Nintendo did have that live stream early, well, not quite so early, but well, if you're in the Pacific time zone, it was early. It was 7 a.m., but 10 a.m. for us here in the East Coast. And I got to say, I am impressed. I liked what I saw. I liked some of the ability to forge new weapons, kind of merge weapons together, to create vehicles, crafts. I mean, it just, the sheer scope, the size of the game too, was very impressive, considering it's running on Switch hardware. But I do want to go to Elona, because he did a live stream while Nintendo was streaming Tears of the Kingdom. Give us your thoughts on what you saw from this live stream yesterday.
I was impressed with how masterful they were with sort of baiting everybody, because they started out just on the ground in Hyrule, and I know probably first 30 seconds, people are like, this looks like DLC, man, like, because they're just on the ground. And then they show you just the scope and the scale of what they're doing, and it's really impressive. They ride like the elevator up that they sort of use their new ability on. And then I felt like they did the same thing with weapon durability. As soon as you get in your first fight, they're like, yeah, weapon durability is still a thing, because this is the thing that everybody complained about in the first one that I got over in about 20 minutes and realized that it was just sort of part of the game.
And it was actually not bad, because like you were switching shit up all the time and you were like doing shit.
Yeah.
So it was honestly kind of cool.
Yeah, and I said multiple times sort of before the footage aired, I said, you know what they should do is since you make meals and elixirs from the stuff that you find, like what if you could repair or upgrade your weapons from stuff that you find so that if you have something you really like, you could sort of, give it a bit of a bump or repair it and not let it break. And I think the fusing that they're letting you do sort of on the fly is their own sort of creative way to not fall into the cliche sort of crafting upgrade trope and that's in so many games. And it's Nintendo. It's like their spin on it. Like it just feels like Nintendo. And then they show the Ultra Hand. They're like making cars and boats. And they just sort of leaned into what people have already been doing with that game. People kind of turned it into a playground. They would solve the shrines in really unique ways and launch enemies so far into the sky. So I think they did a great job taking all of the things that were there and adding to them in a creative way that will give people more than just a game. It's going to be almost like a sandbox for people just to mess around in. And I think somebody in my chat said it. They're like, nobody is going to have the same experience in this game with how much creativity and diversity you can just sort of do your own thing. So I was very impressed. I'm obviously bummed that they didn't time this with the new Switch. The rumors surrounding the Switch 2 are actually sounding pretty impressive for performance-wise. But, the 30 FPS thing is always a bummer when you're used to 60 because I just can't. It's so hard to go back. But it's Zelda, so you kind of have to.
Lono, have you heard of a little thing called Yuzu?
Is that you going to tell me I can mod it or emulate it or whatever?
I actually am able to emulate a lot of the really great stuff from Nintendo on my PC and my Steam Deck and get 60 FPS.
Yeah, I tried doing that. There was a co-op mod for Breath of the Wild, and I tried to do that with my wife, and I got so irritated. I hate doing stuff with that side of gaming. I just want to boot it up and turn it on,
I'm the opposite. Let me tinker. Let me mess with it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You don't come across that way. It seems like you'd have to stop walking and chewing gum at the same time. Like you'd have to take a breather.
Oh yeah, I'm a himbo, 100%, absolutely. But I know what I'm doing.
You've clearly never seen Alex's videos of leveling a floor. I don't know if you've. Did you put
no,
that
I
yeah.
haven't. I haven't. I just assumed all of his shoes were slip-on or Velcro. I wasn't sure like you could do that.
Shoes, just wear sandals. What are you talking about?
That's right. You're Florida, so you don't wear shoes. What are
I don't
those?
even wear shoes, man.
Yeah. How many pairs of socks do you own? One?
None.
Oh, there it is.
No, you own no socks. Don't you lift like barefooted too, Alex?
Yeah, I lift weights barefooted.
Oh man. I tell you, you're asking. I think
no weight belt, barefooted.
Yeah. All right. No, I do think Link's new abilities, though. I do like that. The fusing of like when he merged the tree branch and the rock together to make like a hammer. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Lona. I think that kind of answers maybe some of the complaints about the weapon degradation from the first game. I mean, something as simple. I think you're right. Like just the ability. I do agree to the extent that like I don't think two people necessarily have the same experience because you can craft things, differently, that someone else might. And I think that that's going to lead to a different level of exploration experience for a lot of different gamers. And that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me. And I was already excited for this game, but my hype level is just to the stratosphere now. It's probably my second most anticipated game now this year, right behind which is my self-proclaimed game of the year, Starfield. And that's going to anger.
You think it's going to be game of the year?
Oh, absolutely, man. Todd Bless?
You think Starfield?
God Howard? Come on, man.
I don't trust
wow.
God Howard as far as I can throw him.
You're being serious. You think Starfield takes game of the year?
Yes.
Really?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
Really?
tough. It's such a tough category, man. I think it gets the nomination.
Yeah, no, I say that with a lot of bias, by the way, Lodo. Bethesda's in my backyard. I have been a fan of theirs for years. I love the Elder Scrolls games, Fallout. This is Howard's first new game in 20 something years. So, but I do think it's probably one of those games that could be, game of the year. So
Bro, it's going to get cooked.
I mean,
Starfield is going to get cooked. It's not going to be a bad game. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying if you like, it's going to be Breath of the Wild that's going to win Game of the Year.
you think it's gonna be?
Like-
You mean Tears of the Kingdom?
Tears of the Kingdom. Excuse me. Yeah, it's going to be Tears of the Kingdom. That's what's going to win Game of the Year.
Do you think the Tears of the Kingdom though do you think they showed us enough though to I mean I would say for me they did. I think they showed enough to differentiate.
Dude, it's
enough
Zelda.
from. I know I get that. But
No,
I feel
but I agree. They have to differentiate. It has to be a humongous difference. Right now, they showed us sort of a difference of like what we can do, but I think scope of difference on map and world really is that's the hinge that Game of the Year turns on. If that's not big enough of a chasm, then I think it doesn't. But I do think Tears of the Kingdom is the game to beat this year. If it's not that, I mean, Final Fantasy 16 looks bonkers, and there's also Diablo 4. It's a tough year, honestly, for
And
Starfield.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2. It's going to be a stout year.
no. I agree. It's going to be a great year. But again, like even with Spider-Man 2, it's like, is it going to do enough differently to kind of like, I guess have that wow factor, that whoa, like they just turned the formula upside down. This is amazing. Is it going to do that?
Spider-Man's biggest issue for me was just the mini games, like the side quests.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest issue. Story wise, it was fine.
Yeah, it was a great
But-
story. Yeah.
But like if you're looking at like world map and stuff like that, that's where the issue was for me because it was boring.
Yeah.
They fixed that.
Yeah, I want to see what Insomniac can do PS5 only. That's the big
Mhm.
question, because those guys are wizards. Like what they are able to do with their games, it's honestly kind of crazy if you look at some of the updates, even what they did with Ratchet and Clank. Those guys, their proprietary engine has got some secret sauce in there.
Yeah, they're definitely cooking for sure. But no, Final Fantasy 16. To your point, Lolo, I thought the most recent footage we saw of it looked really good.
Mhm.
Like I'm excited for that game. I like 15, but I wasn't necessarily a big fan. 15 was okay for me. I kind of go back and forth about Noctis, but this one really has my attention. I think this.
I mean, for me, hot take. I don't like the fact that it's not turn based.
Oh, you're old school then, huh?
Yeah, I want a turn based Final Fantasy game. Like that's what I want. I'm one of those people. Like the combat's going to be great because it's DMC5's combat creator, which is fine. I'm not going to be mad at that. But when you tell me Final Fantasy, I'm thinking, okay, I want my turn based, I want my ATB, I want that. I want that experience.
Yeah, the chat that hangs out with me, they know if it's turn based, I'm like no thank you. Funny enough,
Really?
I just can't do it. Like turn based. The only turn based game I remember enjoying was actually Child of Light, which I think was that an Xbox exclusive? I loved that game. I thought that was such a charming little game.
I don't remember.
Child of Light was a Ubi-Soft game, and wasn't that like a platformer also?
I think it was a platformer. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a platformer. It was really cool, and I think they even came out and said there won't be a sequel, which is kind of unfortunate because I thought it was a good little game. It was Ubisoft Montreal.
Alex, oh my God, man. Seder.com said Alex just press the square button, should be good for himbo. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, forget about the fact that you got to like think about strategies and stuff. Fuck
Did you
that
play
noise.
Persona 5, Alex?
I started it, and let me tell you, I didn't want to keep playing it because the music in that game is so fucking good. Then I just sat there at the beginning and just kept jamming out to the music
Dude,
the entire time.
I would sit like the intro screen, like when you first fire it up, and just listen to the intro
It's
music.
so good.
It's like
so good.
it's so good. The music in that game's
You know what
amazing.
You
Yeah.
know what game is also amazing?
What's that?
I'm playing it right now. Chained Echoes.
I haven't played
Chained
that.
Echoes is if Xenoblade Chronicles
Oof.
and Chrono Trigger got together, and that's the game that they put out. It's like 2D, it's sprite based, but it's like semi-open world. It's turn based, but the music in that game is unfucking believable in every way. That game is so absolutely good.
All right, I might have to check that out then, Alex. I might have to check that out.
Then it's like $25, bro. It's not expensive at all.
If I can get away from COD, but yeah, I might have to check that out.
You just put COD down.
It's kind of hard to. It's just the battle pass. And I tell you what, hey, for someone of my age, I mean, I'm still hanging with the sweaties on Call of Duty. I'm impressed.
Why don't you play? I mean, if you want to get sweaty, play CS:GO with me.
No, I'm not doing that. That is so sweaty. That's like going to the mailbox in Florida. Sweaty.
Yeah, it's good.
You know what? I might give it a shot, Alex. I might give it a shot. Why not, right?
CS2's coming out.
I haven't played Counter-Strike in like 20-something years. So it's been a while.
Every day.
It's been a while. But yeah, so Logic, did you any thoughts on Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Tears of the Kingdom?
No, not really.
Not on your radar.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not a big watching trailers, watching stuff and getting excited. I get excited when a game comes out and I actually play it. Pre-roll footage and all that stuff is great, but we don't know what it is until it shows up. So I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about Game of the Year. I'm trying to think of the other games that are coming out. Yeah, maybe this one could be in the running for Game of the Year. I know it's too early to have that conversation. The game hasn't even come out yet, but I'm just basing it. I'm just basing that on
because that's what I've been sitting here saying the entire
I
time
know.
you guys been talking.
I know. It's just a fun conversation to have, though. It's and obviously with the Zelda thing, it's based on the previous Zelda, Breath of the Wild winning Game of the Year. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. But begs the question though, does Nintendo are they is the Switch in need of an update? We talked about 30 FPS for this game. Look, I think that as long as Nintendo's selling these things like hotcakes, there's probably no reason for them to upgrade just yet. I mean, obviously, I think they're going to try to milk this thing as much as possible and make some money. But Alex, you think that they should upgrade the Switch now?
It's needed an upgrade since the day it was released.
What? Since the day it was released?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mobile Zen 2 processor.
I understand that. But they've had some great games, Alex.
Great games are fine, yeah. But it needs that upgrade.
Yeah.
It's outdated hardware since the beginning of time, since the beginning of its inception.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what the performance is going to be like on Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch. So I have the Switch OLED, so that's where I'll be playing it. And I'm going to try to do my best to stay away from Gaming Forte and not pre-order the limited, the special edition version of Tears of the Kingdom. So, yeah. Logic, were you saying something, man?
No.
Okay. I thought you were chiming in.
No, I was going to chime in and say, at one level, I agree with Alex, but 120 million in circulation, they tapped into something that nobody else is tapping into. It's just that
lightning in the bottle.
It's right in the Asian market, especially just that portable gaming. My gosh, just the number of games that they sell, and they don't even need to perform well. That's the crazy thing. All the stuff that was. Yeah. Look at that one Pokemon game. It was running like absolute garbage, and it was setting sales records. It's just
sold gangbusters
in a weekend.
Sold gangbusters.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating because it's one of those things where you can look at, maybe you're just totally not able to eat certain fast food joints. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat that. It's so unhealthy or bad. Or the value of the food's really bad, but it doesn't matter. There's a market for it. And that's the thing with Nintendo is there's just a market for Nintendo that they carved out. And it's kind of brilliant.
Well, I mean, Lona, you showed on, I think it was today, you showed the list, the top 20 games in Japan, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was what was it, 18 of them were Nintendo?
18 of them were Nintendo, yes.
I mean, that's insane. And then you look at NPD. Was it 6 of the top 12, I think, are Nintendo games?
I think so.
Yeah. Last year, the top 6 were Nintendo in Japan. Or are you saying just all? Where are you saying?
NPD here in North America.
Oh I forget because I had the image. I can't remember
I
what
thought
it was
I thought
now.
you said like 6 out of the 12 or something like that were like Nintendo games. But we do see Nintendo chart quite a bit NPD, and they're just, I mean, and you know, and they're hitting like 30, 40 million or something crazy like that in terms of units sold for some of their games.
Yeah. I think the one I showed where they were 6, I actually think that was NPD because the top 20 in Japan was 18, but then the top 10, I was also showing that like Call of Duty was the #1 game in North America, and it didn't even register top 10 in Japan.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty's not even it's not even a thing in Japan. Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not even a thought. But that's what I'm saying. Like I don't see an incentive for Nintendo to, if they're selling software like this and they're still pushing out and selling hardware. I mean, they were still #2 NPD for February, behind PlayStation. I mean, they are. Let me get the super chat real quick. From Gaming Forte with the $5 super chat says Nintendo will move forward until they pass 155 million. I pre-order 17 systems in one day, mostly due people that already have a Nintendo Switch. They coming. So and Forte works. For those who don't know, Forte actually works at GameStop. So yeah. But like I was saying, I mean, I just don't see the incentive for them to upgrade that console if they're just selling it. I mean, why at this point? I mean, they're printing money. They're literally printing money.
Doug Bowser said they have a couple years left with it because the rumors about the Switch. Yeah, the Switch 2 rumors were swirling. He's like, no, we have a couple years good. We got a couple more good years. I mean, it's the GTA dilemma, right? When you're printing money, why supplant or try to replace it? And not only that, they sell the Switch at profit. Like they make money per unit. There's no competition for the chipsets anymore. It's all old hardware. Like, the production of that thing is so low cost. It's going to be really hard for them to feel that motivation and the incentive to leave it behind. But I don't know. There were rumors about a Switch 2 late this year, and when he said that, I said, I don't think so. Not now.
No, for the reasons you just mentioned, Leno. So, so I do want to talk about. There's been a lot of talk about the ABK deal, and I brought this up during a was that a moan of pleasure, Alex? Or was that something?
A mode of disdain because I'm sick and tired of this fucking thing.
we're not gonna talk about ABK right now, but
Jesus Christ.
but it's crazy. Like I've had this conversation with Game Logic a lot, and. We were talking about COVID earlier as relates to the impact that COVID had on E3, but also the impact, let's think about the impact that COVID had on video game releases. And I feel like a lot of the conversation, again, at least on Twitter, right, small sample size, but nevertheless, the conversation there is really been around the ABK deal for the most part, at least from what I'm seeing. I mean, that's because Twitter's feeding that algorithm to me, and
You're
but
also instigating it, by the way.
Yeah, that too.
I see you instigating it. Don't.
Hey, you know what, man? I look, man.
Don't blame me.
Hey, Alex, I'm Latino, man. You know how it is, man. We're spicy. We're spicy.
Mm-hmm,
you might be a little more spicy, sir, but no, but it's Logic and I were talking about this. Like, there's a lot of games coming out that are coming out, but that already come out that are really solid. Some great games, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about them. And it's unfortunate, like there's so much hyper focus on the ABK deal. And I don't know, maybe I'm seeing something different on Twitter than you guys are. But if you guys are seeing people talk about games, please let me know because I'm not seeing it. And there's a lot of stuff coming out. I did see some conversation around Tears of the Kingdom. But what was the game that released by Team Ninja just recently? Wolong. Yeah, like I didn't see a lot of conversation around that. I saw some conversation on Resident Evil 4 remake. That's kind of died down.
Bro, it came out 3 days ago. What are you talking about?
I know, but typically, but
again, it came out.
I get that, but like we've seen games in the past where the conversation is longer than 3 days. Is my point. It's like
Elden Ring was lightning in a bottle. You're not going to get that.
No. And I'm not saying we're going to get Elden Ring. Conversation around Elden Ring. But even then, I felt like with Resident Evil 4 remake, it came out, people talked about it, and then it's like, okay, back to the ABK deal. So, but again, maybe it's the like Froggy T Wright saying the algorithm will feed you what you post or like. So that could be a 2. That could be a 2. But what do you guys think so far? Like, what are some of the games, newer game releases that you guys have played this year that have really kind of caught your attention or kind of, that you've enjoyed so far this year in 2023?
That I've enjoyed? Like, nothing really that I've enjoyed. Mostly because all of the ports on PC have been really bad. There have been very few that are actually really good. Like, RE4 is a really great port.
How about the Last of Us port?
Oh my god.
That is an atrocious disaster of a nightmare. And I've never seen a 7700X CPU get bottlenecked that fucking hard on any single game. Like,
Is this-
even when
is
I
this
played
your CPU?
Total War. Yeah, I have a 7700X and a 7900 XT. I played Total War Warhammer. I've never had my CPU hit that hard before. Like, that is, it was like in the 80 percentile. I was like, what are you doing? Like, it's just, it's an atrocious port. I knew the second Iron Galaxy touched it, it would be something special. But like, let me see what, so I got a couple of keys this year. Atomic Heart seemed interesting, but I haven't finished it. Dead Space was really good. Hi-Fi Rush was good. Returnal's good. Octopath Traveler 2, absolutely.
Yeah, Returnal really, I was so upset because that game should have soared on PC because it's a rogue, and because it used Epic Online Services for the co-op, it got like the first day, everybody freaked out and bombed it and said, "Oh, it ghost installed Epic Game Store." 'Cause
Yeah,
you know how Steam
I talked
guys,
about that. Yeah, I talked about that on my port review. I was like, it's gonna install Epic Online Services. It's not the Epic Store. That's like the first thing I said, because even Sackboy has that. So it's like, just chill.
and it got bombed day one. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, this game, because Digital Foundry was praising it, like it had a few issues that I think got patched within like 48 hours, and I was like, "This game should be soaring." I don't even like rogues, and Returnal was my game of the year it came out. I was like, "This is a phenomenal game."
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah,
I played it on PS5, but not on PC. How's it on PC,
the
Alex?
Stutter is super. It's one of the best ports I've seen this year. The options menu is phenomenal. I will talk about an options menu for 45 minutes in the video if you let me. It is so good the way it's designed. The game itself is running incredibly well, but it's not Steam Deck compatible. It's not going to run on Steam Deck from when I tested it. And then it's just some shader stutters here and there, but you're pretty much singing all throughout the entire game. Like, you're gonna no matter what GPU you have, you're gonna be fine. So it runs really well. So let me see. Hi-Fi Rush. Oh, Like a Dragon Ishin, that came out too.
That's right, that did come out. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to play that.
I'm a big Yakuza fan. Yeah.
Yakuza's fun.
Hi-Fi Rush was great. It was a real pleasant surprise. My daughter actually beat it, and she loved it. She would talk to me about it, and she would tell me the stuff she was doing. Every once in a while I'd have to help her because some of the rhythm stuff was just a little too like tight, for the timing. But I loved watching her play it because like just watching her little mind figure all the stuff out, and she'd have to teach me because I'm like, I've not been playing. I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, you got to do this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, okay. She had it all figured out, man. That was the best. That was a dope little game, man.
That was a nice. It was a great stealth drop on Microsoft. That's one of the highlights for Microsoft for Xbox this year was that. I mean, I thought it was huge. It was great. Like, if they could do more of that, that'd be awesome. It would be awesome.
Yeah, they started the year strong because the showcase was solid. The only weird thing about the showcase was no launch date for Forza Motorsport. I still don't think we still don't have one.
Don't get Logic started on that, by the way.
Yeah, correct. We still do not have a date.
Yeah,
that's so weird. I don't think it's coming first half. I think that'll be the other one that gets bumped. Because that was one of the ones that was supposed to be first half.
Yeah, was it supposed to be like June-ish or something like that? Wasn't that the?
I mean, it was in the Rolodex of titles that supposedly were all coming out within the next 12 months, right?
Oh, the 12-month thing
was the claim.
Yeah, be careful there, Logic. We might be. I'm ready for the pony comment soon. But
Look, man, I repeated the statement that they made. What I said is factual and cannot be denied. I will not argue about it.
people don't deal in facts, man.
Well,
Unfortunately,
they was like, oh, here's what we're going to launch in 12 months.
Yep. Well, here's what you'll be playing in. Here's what you'll be playing in the next 12 months.
The claim was everything that was put on in the show was a game people were going to be playing within the next 12 months.
Yeah, shit happens.
So that's not going to happen. But so is it? So
while we're on the topic, and I accept that. I work in software engineering. I mean, stuff happens. But what I don't find acceptable is stuff happens and you just sidestep it. Right, you don't speak to it. You act like nobody's like you. You take a huge and put a huge shit patty on the floor. Like in my household, we have these books. We have these books about the dog poop on the soccer field, right, and how everybody on the kids' soccer field and how like all the parents and everybody just stepped around it and nobody did anything about it. Like you don't take a huge dump, right, and just leave it there, and act like it's not there. Right, which is kind of the same way the release date for Starfield was handled. Right, it was just casual. Oh yeah, it's not going to be ready. No big deal.
Yeah,
I think also like making that kind of like bold statement was also not a good move.
No,
in my personal opinion, that is a very
I don't disagree.
Divisive statement, and to say something like that, like, okay, you are betting on this, we're going to do this, and it's like, okay, you better deliver.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's like that's a tough thing to do as well.
Yeah, and you got to deliver considering the track record here too. You have to. But no, Loda, are you saying that? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Loda. I cut you off, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wonder how much of that came from Microsoft because they had the bad cadence in 2022 and they were really wanting to make it look like, okay, hey, the next 12 months are going to be great because we still don't have a release date for Flintlock. It was on that image as well, next 12 months. I don't know. I don't think we have an Arc 2 release date either, do we? Because they're all just generic 2023 dates. And it's like, well, you got 2 months to make good and you're probably not going to. Stalker 2 is on this image. Like, I think that came from Microsoft and the developers were like, why did you do that? Like, we don't, that's not how we operate. Like, I don't know. There's so many pictures. I mean, I'm sorry, so many games on this picture that are not going to land before June. And I kind of agree with Logic. Just speak plainly to people. Just speak plainly and say, this is what's going on. This is the release date, or this is what we're trying to do. All these release window pushes and stuff, I think you just irritate people because they feel like they can't trust what's happening.
Yeah, I feel like Stalker 2 is the only one that has an excuse though.
That's true. That's true. I would give those guys a pass.
That's okay. Yeah. That's fine. Like, you're good. Like, take your time.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure people are saying that I'm hypocritical or always say that I'm hypocritical. I will try not to be hypocritical. I was very big that Microsoft needed to come out and make a commitment. I actually wanted to see a longer term roadmap. Given that they gave us a roadmap for 12 months and that it was a commitment, I was fine with that. But what I find unacceptable in PR, in image management, in marketing is that, then when that hiccup occurs, right, you just don't say anything about it. Which and to quadruple down on the Forza Motorsport thing, right? That has been going on since 2020, right? Like, look, people who are knowledgeable about Microsoft, who pay attention to the production cycle, know very well that the way the TikTok works is that Turn 10 builds the engine, puts out Forza Motorsport, hands it off to Playground Studios. Playground Studios makes the next iteration in a Forza Horizon. So it's not like it wasn't a wackadoodle move, right, when Forza Motorsport didn't come out at launch, right, but then Forza Horizon 5 was announced, right? That was knowingly obvious and out of cycle move, and it was knowingly obvious that there was something going on. The next thing that we heard was that production had started on Forza Motorsport after the release of the Xbox Series X. That's the thing that's bothersome to me, and I've accused Sony of the same thing before too. Like, don't. And I hate to use these words, so I'm sure they're going to be used against me. Like, don't talk to me like I'm stupid, right? Don't talk to me like I don't know what's going on, right? And then so for it to then not be there at launch, not be there at 2020, not show up for the 2 years thereafter, show up in a showcase where you said it was going to be there in 12 months, show up again in another showcase, and you just not speak to the release date, and then now we're into March and you don't bother saying anything about it. That to me is problematic.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Game Logic. I don't disagree. But you know, I don't want to, because I know people are gonna be like, oh, you guys are just bashing Xbox. You do this every weekend or every week, blah blah blah. No, I mean, you know, I think those are fair criticisms. But no, I do want to go back because we were talking about Hi-Fi Rush. That was a great announcement there. But what's some of the? I think Alex, you were going through a list of games that you've enjoyed playing, right? Was there anything else that kind of what's that?
Just games I had keys for.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, just stuff that came out.
okay. What about you, Loda? What are some of the like newer releases that you played this year that have really that you've really enjoyed so far?
I probably played Hogwarts the most, and my wife is still playing it because they put out that stat like, look how many people haven't beat it yet, and it's like, well, yeah, a lot of us are still playing it because there's just so much to do. So she's still plugging along, and I thought that game might sneak a bunch of awards this year because commercially, I don't think it'll be toppled. I think it'll be the most commercially successful game this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it hasn't hit PS4 yet. It hasn't hit the Switch yet. So it's going to be really, really tough to beat. There were a couple of the PSVR 2 games that really surprised me. I've never done VR, and the Star Wars one I thought was really impressive. Like, it felt good to shoot and to move around. And then obviously the Diablo 4 beta. I'm like chomping at the bit to be inside of Diablo 4 and just and just running around and doing that thing, man. Like my wife and I love playing Diablo together, and that's where we played the beta together, and you know, really excited to just have a game to sit on the couch and just enjoy. The way they set up couch co-op was so good. Such good use of screen capital and UI. The Resident Evil 4 remake, I think, is a love letter that wasn't written to me. Like, it's a beautiful masterpiece, and because I have no nostalgic attachment to it, I just didn't enjoy it. I loved Resident Evil 2, the remake, but 4 is so much more action-oriented. I felt like I was wearing a straitjacket. Like, I just couldn't get into a zone with the controls, and feels kind of constrained because it is an older game at its core still. But I'm telling you, it's a beautifully written love letter to Resident Evil fans. I kind of warned people. I was like, if you don't have an attachment to this, you might get frustrated. It might not really vibe with you because I don't feel like it was written to me.
Yeah, no.
I have a hot take about RE4.
Go ahead, Alex.
If you're willing to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I think Resident Evil 4 is what ruined the Resident Evil franchise.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why
I think if it wasn't for RE4, you wouldn't have 4, 5, or 6, and you wouldn't be able to have like those really bad games.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone started moving towards action-oriented games and horror instead of survival horror. And I feel like RE4 was the start of that. Quick time events, all that kind of stuff that everybody just despises.
Mm-hmm.
That was RE4.
Yeah.
To a T.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait. So do you think Resident Evil 7 was a bad game?
I haven't played 7.
Oh my god!
You haven't played 7?
No,
7 is so good.
Oh, 7 is so
I've
good.
only played. Actually, I didn't play RE for the first time until like 2 years ago.
Well, I was the same way. I got introduced into the franchise with 7, and I loved it. And then Village, I didn't like as much because it felt like a departure from what I loved about 7. And then Resident Evil 2 Remake felt like kind of a happy middle ground. And then 4 just didn't hook me. I couldn't vibe with it. It just didn't work.
I'm weird. I like OG RE2 over the remake.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I can't I think the remake is honestly
Okay.
like pretty shit. Because like the second half of that game is just a complete waste of time. And you're sitting there like going through the orphanage and you're playing as a little girl and you're doing all this shit. And it's like they did really great in the police station, which is fantastic because everybody remembers that. But then after the police station, it's like whoop, down, like it just goes out the fucking window. And like I feel like RE1. So for me, it's like RE1 and RE2 are very similar to like Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, in my opinion.
Mm.
Like, I think that's the best analogy I can make for those two games. And then you've got 3. 3 is like the best.
Maria.
Yeah. But like, I just feel like the remake just didn't hit it. I was just very just like, what is going, like, it didn't fit with me, because I was just like, this is not survival horror, this is action horror.
By the way, I agree with Michael Wells. RE2 remake is amazing. I will never go back to Take Controls. I agree with him. Agree with him 100%. But so Alex,
RE2
you haven't played
RE2
Resident Evil 7 then, right?
No.
Yeah,
I
you
want
should.
to.
Yeah, definitely go check that out, man. Yeah, actually, Nick says RE7 equals Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes, it's very. Yes, it has elements of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Absolutely, but I
feel like RE7 is like a dark horse.
I would recommend that. That was a really I actually liked 7 resonated with me more than Village. Village just didn't do it for me. But yeah, definitely I would say, Alex, try 7, man. It's actually
I gotta
it's actually really good.
I gotta play this out.
Yeah. Was it who is it, the grandmother or something that's in a wheelchair in 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, that freaked me out. No, I won't. I won't. Yeah, but no, that freaked me out, by the way. Like, just randomly appearing in random places, sitting in a wheelchair, like that really actually, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. No,
they did a really good job with the story. They did a really good job with the story in that one. I remember at the end being like, okay, I'm really satisfied with how that turned out. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good game. Oh man, But all right, let's as we were talking about Diablo 4, let's talk about the well, actually, I'm sorry, before we do that, Game Logic. I didn't mean to skip you, sir. But was there anything that you played more recent that's new in terms of new releases that you're enjoying right now?
No, it was fine for you to skip me. I mean, you and I have talked about this, right? Which is, one of the things. One of the reasons we want to talk about it on the show is just to draw a highlight to the fact that it's an amazing year, right?
Absolutely.
I don't believe we've seen a release slate like this through March since 2017. Right, the year that we got Resident Evil 7 and Horizon Zero Dawn and Breath of the Wild, and I think it's right now the release slate so far is actually above what we got in 2017. I do have my physical copy of Metroid Prime Remastered coming in this week, so that'll be here tomorrow, and I have played a little bit of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the next gen upgrade or whatever on the Xbox Series X, but. So there's a ton of great stuff out this year for gamers in general. For me personally, just a lot of that stuff is in the weird spaces that are kind of my nopes, like, a lot of survival horror, a lot of JRPGs, a lot of, Hi-Fi Rush being a rhythm game, Monster Hunter Rise being back, which I've already played on, I think, 1 or 2 different platforms already. I do want to get around to check out Dredge. Returnal is doing better on Steam now. It's running a very positive 80% approval rating among Steam users, so that looks good. But I'm not a super huge roguelite fan, so
Oh man.
So ton of stuff that's out there. A ton of good stuff that people should go play. Just unfortunately, not a ton of stuff that's in my wheelhouse. WWE 2K23 has come out. Haven't seen a ton of people,
MLB The Show. MLB The Show's out.
Yep, MLB The Show. Like Alex mentioned, Like a Dragon. Again, I'm not a super huge Yakuza fan.
You're missing out.
No, I like the games. I just don't. I've never stuck with one like all the way through. So it's something that people hate me saying that. What's that?
Which one did you start with?
The crop of ones that showed up into Game Pass, I want to say, when they first came to Xbox or whatever.
0?
I think so. Yeah.
0. It takes about 3 or 4 hours to get moving. Once you pass the 3-hour mark, you are literally going to be so invested. It's going to become like your new addiction. It's basically like Yakuza basically plays like a Japanese soap opera that you've always wanted to watch, but you never could.
Yeah, I'll tell you again. I know that there are going to be people who don't find this popular, but I am I don't know what the word is I want to use. I don't want to say socially aware when I'm playing video games. The thing that turned me not off, but the thing that made me a little wonky, and maybe it's because I have kids and I have, well, because I have kids. One of the things that turned me off was like the weird thing about like the gray market for like girls' underwear or whatever, and like yeah. I just wasn't. I didn't need that. So, but I enjoyed the game. I love the mini games and stuff. I will say, I think probably the thing that I've spent the most time with that's a new release this year was Fire Emblem Engage on the Nintendo Switch. So I did find that enjoyable.
You have a Steam Deck, then just play it then play Yakuza on Steam Deck.
I have a Steam Deck. I am not a tinkerer like you are though. I just play things stock. What's that?
It runs off Proton. It's totally set. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, but to play a Nintendo game, you've got to run emulation.
Oh no, I'm talking about Yakuza.
Oh yeah. Yep. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, we're talking about Yakuza. Nintendo games, whatever.
Yeah. All right. That's no. It's your point, Elijah. That's kind of point of the conversation. Just talk about like a lot of because again, I just haven't seen that conversation a lot, but there's just a lot of great content coming out, or it's already dropped in 23, and even more coming out in 2023. So, but speaking of games, new games that are coming out, we have Diablo IV. They had the open beta this past weekend. The closed beta was the weekend before. So I'm gonna go to you first, Alex, since you kind of gave me a hard time a little bit on DM when you're like, "What do you mean you don't know I'm a big Diablo fan?" So,
well, I mean, I've played Diablo since I was like fucking 14, and like on a 28.8 modem where you're trying to find your IP so you can connect with your friend and lag the fuck out, and then you kill him between the bridge and you collect his ear and you go haha, and you log off, you don't talk to him again for a week because he's mad at you. So like that. But so D4, this is coming from the perspective of someone who has grown up with D2 for a very long time, who still plays D2 and plays Path of Exile. D4 to me feels like Diablo 3.5, and it feels like what they've done is they've taken the areas that people complain about Diablo 3 the most, which seems to be the artwork, things like that, and then just adjusted that, and then really just try to streamline even more Diablo 3, and then put a coat of paint over it. Because my biggest issue with Diablo 4 are two specific things. One is the skill tree being very bare bones and very simplistic and very minimal. It even feels less, I would say it even feels less complex than Diablo 3, because Diablo 3 you would have a skill and then you would have 5 rune affixes to that skill, and so you would have those 5 adjustments. But in 4 you only have the 1 skill, then you have the 2 affixes that you can then adjust to that, and some will have 3, but they've really reduced that a lot, and so it feels like it doesn't even matter your decisions that you're making. So builds then theory crafting, which are really what I enjoy a lot, don't really work very well. And then what really impacts me a lot is itemization, because what happens is there's no, like in my opinion, there's no such thing as an actual build in Diablo. What it is you pick skills that you think are going to work very well. Then you find the legendary effects or aspects that will work with that skill that you've selected, and then that completes your build. So it feels as though they've taken the skill tree portion aspects of those skills that you would normally get from a tree, applied it onto legendaries, and then that's how your build is actually complete. You don't actually have builds. And so things like overtuning on the Necro, the Druid being undertuned, the Barbarian, people figuring him out and being like, that is insane, because all the affixes and stats that you get from each weapon that your barb carries over all multiply and stack. So it's even more insane that you could really just manipulate a lot of that. So what I really wanted Diablo 4 to be was to take Path of Exile and say, okay, how do we break this? How do we take Path of Exile down and make it to where people can like consume this kind of game, but still keep it complex enough so that way people can actually like have an easier entry, but also a level of depth that you wouldn't normally get from other games. And I feel like that's really my issue with D4.
So do you think that this is a result of the consolification of Diablo? And
I
because I
feel
think
that- Go ahead.
just to set it up for you, because I think a huge thing that longtime Diablo players. So I mean, I saw a lot of fervor, over the weekend that seemed to be coming from a lot of people who are encountering the series for the first time, and especially for who are encountering the series for the first time on console. And so what I think a lot of people don't know is that Diablo has always been a PC first, right, design, right, and build. And actually, even though Diablo 3 was ported to consoles, the way that happened was the Diablo 3 PC build was completed and then handed off to the console team. And then they reworked it in some cases in very large degrees, right, to make that thing work on console. So this is the first time that from jump that team has been designing with consoles as a target, right, from the beginning. And so I kind of wanted to hear your kind of perspective on what, if what you're seeing is, I don't want to call it dumbing down, but if there's a watering down of complexity that you feel like you're seeing.
I feel like the watering down of complexity is not because of it being on console, because I think I'll give console players a lot of shit, but they're not stupid, right? When they play a game, they're not dumb. People like to min max. It's what they like to do. I think the issue is that what Blizzard has done, especially with, I think the start of it was Diablo 3, was that they focused on the auction house. And so they said, okay, how do we maximize people getting into the auction house as much as possible? And so that's what they did. So what they did was they created the ability for you to go in, and you weren't playing Diablo 3, you were playing the Diablo 3 auction house the majority of the time, which is really the issue of what happened. And then once Reaper of Souls came out, then of course you saw that difference is there because of itemization and drops increasing. But D3's issue was that legendaries didn't matter because item sets were far more powerful than you have in general, where you would just turn everything into like 2 skills and you win. But, Path of Exile's on console too. So I don't understand, like, the dumbing down of that for console doesn't make any sense to me. I think what it is the dumbing down and the simplification of it all is to push the battle pass, the store, the cosmetics. How do we bring people into this game to have them spend more money while they're in this game and having a good time to do it? Because you would love doing 300,000 damage on somebody and popping them off, because in D2 you didn't see the damage you did, but you sure did fucking see it in D3. And so and they love showing that. And so with that being said, they want to have all the damage you're doing looks cool, but don't you want to look cool too? Jump over to the cash shop. Apparently my microphone is popping.
Yeah, I hear it a little bit, but
Says a lot.
Yeah, I hear it every once in a while. Hey, you guys, Logic, Alone, are you guys hearing that too?
Yeah, it's frequent, but it's not as loud as it was before when we were having the issues.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's just a little bit, and just while you're working on that, I just want to so my comment about dumbing down and simplifying and watering down was not just for the listeners, right? I'm not talking about your guys not being intelligent enough to play Diablo. I'm talking about control scheme, right, and quality of life things and things that are just easier to accomplish and maneuver around the UI, right, on a PC. Like when I play Diablo, one of the metas that I do is I do a lot of juggling of a lot of inventory management, right? Because I like using like all the different weapons, right? And the way the weapons change your appearance, when you arm them, and the way the animations and things change, and that's to me more difficult to do on console. And when you go into the skill swapping, right, that Alex was talking about, right? That to me is more difficult to maneuver around that UI on a console with a controller. So I was expecting that there would be some compromises made, right, in terms of, in order to help people manage that complexity with a different control scheme. So I was just kind of interested to hear that take.
Does this sound better?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, it sounds way better.
Yeah, it sounds better, man.
This sounds way better, which is funny. This is the browser version of Discord now.
Really?
Yeah. So, sorry for the popping chat. So I think Logic for the idea of like, oh, the UI to me is horrid. it feels like Diablo Immortal, which is really just the most insane part. The item carrying is one item per slot. I don't understand why I can't just stack gems. Why does one gem take up one slot? It makes no absolute sense. If I'm gonna have, spears and great swords take up one slot on their own, I should be able to stack the gems as well.
Wait. What about similar? What about same types of gems?
That's what I'm saying. So if you have, let's say, if you have 3 chipped rubies, each chipped ruby will take up its own separate slot in your inventory.
Jesus. Well, one of my other questions that I was going to go down the path with you on is one of the problems that I feel like has recurred from time to time in the Diablo design is what I refer to as just stinginess, right? Just kind of pain in the ass stuff, like the thing you just mentioned, that I'm like, it's just there just to make life difficult for people for like no valid like gameplay reason. And so things like, and again, it's controversial because different people think of it different ways, but like, they've you used to have to inventory manage health potions, right, which they took out in Diablo 3. Scrolls of town portal, scrolls of identify used to be a thing, which they took out in Diablo 3. So have they brought any of that stuff back?
No, that's still the same. Like I said, that's why it feels like Diablo 3.5. You still have to sit there and use like, oh, press Q for my potion. I don't got to worry about it because my inventory doesn't matter. Just wait for the cooldown.
So, Alex, real quick, people in the chat are saying you can stack the gems.
But you can?
That's what they're saying.
Whatever.
I honestly didn't pay attention to it. I picked up like a couple of rubies or whatever. I didn't pay attention to it.
It doesn't fucking matter to me. Like it just seems
worries.
so fucking obtuse, just the way they designed it, and I don't know, man. Like I'm lucky enough to get a key from Blizz, which was really great, but in my opinion, like as someone who really is into ARPGs, if you're itching for that thing, I would either do, and you're not like looking for Path of Exile and Sanity, then try Last Epoch because that may be the better choice. But I don't know, man. It just, the item is like, can I go on a rant about itemization?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. This bullshit about fucking 3.5% increased damage to near enemies, 4.5% damage increase to far away enemies. What the fuck does that mean? Lucky hit? No, that's proc chance. Shut the fuck up. Item level? No. Item power? No, that's item level. You're taking shit from World of Warcraft. Don't fucking spit in my mouth and say it's Gatorade. Like this fucking bullshit. Right? It's so, like, their items are so goddamn fucking boring. The stats are boring. There's no fucking breakpoints. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. You can't even fucking add your own fucking skill up to your own fucking stats that you want. You can't build your character the way you want. It's all leveled up for you. Everything is fucking streamlined. It's barely a fucking RPG. And it's just sit there and you're fucking fed all this bullshit and you go through and your items are fucking bullshit because all you look for is the green arrow is good, the red arrow is bad because there's no more resistances because your armor now negates resistance on its own. So you don't have to even get resistance gear. So it's like, it's just like, it's in Diablo in name alone, and everything else is just like there to simplify everything, to make everything as simple as possible, and nobody can have a single fucking thought. And it feels like developers at Blizzard either A, hate everything that Blizzard North has ever done in the past, or B, are ashamed of their history of what Diablo actually is. That's how I really feel.
I was gonna say, Alex, let us know how you really feel. No, I'm gonna go to Lono real quick. Kind of get your thoughts on this, Lono. What are your thoughts on the beta? Do you share any any of the similar opinions to what Alex has about the beta, what he's played so far?
I don't, and I think this is going to be a common theme with Diablo 4. I think you're going to find people in his camp, the more hardcore guys, the more deep dive, and the more nostalgic players. Because I've played Diablo 1, 2, and 3. I love them all, but I never played them to the degree that he has played them. I'm that guy that literally just looks for the green arrows. And so... and everybody's different, right? Because typically you got a picture. I'm sitting on the couch with my wife, like we're just hacking through crowds of enemies and getting loot and changing our loot. And I've just never been the min-max guy. I remember as soon as I get into a game And there's that min-max element where I'm having to check this and that and the third thing. My brain doesn't really vibe with that. It gets too down into the minutia. This is just who I am, right? Like my wife's extremely detail oriented. I'm like big picture oriented. So when a video game wants me to get down into the details, I feel like I'm not really playing anymore. And somebody who derives joy and pleasure out of that is probably going to find that Diablo 4 has very much gone broad audience. And I think that's the natural trajectory for franchises that have been around this long that would like to expand their horizons into other fields. Because we have to remember, this is the first Diablo that's going to have a simultaneous console launch. That's never happened in the history of the game before. And so they're considering that. I would be curious, with the lion's share of the audience likely having their history on PC, how's this going to shake out? Are they going to... There was a time where Call of Duty did this, and there was measurable decline in sales because they lost all the loyalists. They lost all the people who felt like the game was losing its way. And this could be one of those times where the core says, no, this isn't Diablo. This doesn't have enough depth. This doesn't have enough of the things that we like. You've turned it into, you've casualified it, right? You've dumbed it down too much. And after playing the beta and hearing feedback on Endgame, I can say they've nailed all of the things that would allow them to do the deep builds and the deep itemization systems and all of the different, things that you might want to do in the end game if you're a hardcore player, because they've nailed the moment-to-moment action is exactly what you need for people to play for long hours. The animation updates they did, I think, were killer for that. You're getting those immediate, dopamine feedbacks from just cracking a barrel. Feels good, right?
Yeah.
Even sound design is crispy and crunchy. And if they can make the druid not be a pile of garbage, because I loved druid in Diablo 2, so I don't know what they did to my boy, but he's laying on the ground. And
he's done.
I played with the druid, by the way, in the open beta. I played with the druid because
that boy is cooked.
Yeah, it's real
that
bad.
class needs a full rework.
I don't know what they did. I couldn't get anything to work right. And I will say this, their idea and philosophy around resistances seems so overtuned, because my wife was half of my level. So I was like a 21 and she was melting everything at like a 10 or 11. And I was fighting, enemies that were like 20 something. And I think they have that resistance curve so overtuned that like you feel weaker the longer you play, which is backwards. Like I don't understand. I definitely think in the end game and nightmare environments, you should feel the need to min-max. You should feel the need to kind of grind. But when I'm level 21, I'm not going to do that. It's a forward momentum part of the game. So why is it slowing down and everybody feeling spongy? I think their resistance idea was probably a creative way to not just make everything get crazy strong, but it's so overtuned. It's not enjoyable to level up. You feel weaker as you level up. I don't know why they did that.
It's the scaling that they did with your leveling. So you're scaling, like you level up, the enemy levels up. And so what happens is, because you're leveling up and they're leveling up, their resistances get higher, their damage gets higher, but you have not obtained the gear for you to counteract that level up with that enemy. You're still wearing the same gear. You haven't increased your stats by the 10% that you need to increase them by. The amount of damage that you're outputting is not correlating to what you have. You don't have the break point to put in the points into your stat that's going to really impact you positively to counteract their leveling up. So that's why the entire concept of like them scaling with you is bad, because you're not scaling at the same rate they are. So you are weaker until you get the gear that drops from them. And that's the issue.
And see, the thing is I'm okay if enemies level with me, because that keeps kind of gear and enemies relevant. You don't suddenly feel like you're just thrashing an area, right? But I feel like the resistances element of it isn't really needed until you get to the end game. Like, who's going to go grind for best gear? Oh, I just hit 22. Better go get all the best gear for 22.
Yeah, or
like
your bis. Yeah.
Who's doing that?
Yeah, to go get your bis, and you're like, oh yeah, let me do that. That'll be exactly what I want to do at 22. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like the forward momentum of 1 to 100, like leveling 1 to 100, I don't know why you wouldn't just have that be awesome the whole time. And then when you get to 100, all right, now it's grind time. Now it's best in slot time. Now it's, min max time. I shouldn't feel like I need to do that because, well, I just hit 25 and my gosh, I'm weak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one thing I'd add is, Leno mentioned that, certain things that maybe Alex took as negative and that I might see as negative. I didn't play the beta, but I did have the background of playing, lots of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 and kind of wanted to understand what the beta felt like from a progression of the series perspective. But I think one of the things that I'm concerned about is, and it's not pushback or whatever about Lono's concept, right? That there's a natural progression, right, for a series or a franchise which is trying to gain a bigger traction with a larger addressable market, right, of gamers to go in this direction of, becoming more bombastic and more simplified and more accessible. That may be true, but I think the elegance in game design, particularly for long-lived franchises, which need to be handled with a certain degree of additional care than like a new IP, is to expand the design to accommodate both types of players, right? So that you have players who have the ability to deep dive if they choose to, and players who could just kind of play, at the surface level. So it may not be the best example, but, while I've been thinking, for instance, Destiny 2, right? You can dig under the hood of Destiny 2 and coordinate your build and do all types of stuff and get into a lot of lore and go down a lot of rabbit holes that I don't personally care about, right? As a Destiny 2 player, right? I'm just going to show up, run a patrol, do a few things. I don't go running all over the galaxy chasing after exotics, yada, yada, yada. I don't play raids like Forte does, right? And so there's game there for people who just want to play at the surface level, and there's game for people who want to dive deeper. A lot of racing game franchises have done that. They've figured out a way to strike the balance where, if you want to play Forza, right, and not get under the hood, you can do that, right? Or you can super deep dive. You can spend tons of time in the cosmetic shop building your own cosmetics, right? But they don't force you to have to traverse through that stuff by putting it right in your windshield. But by the same token, they didn't just completely drop it out of the series. So with Diablo in the past, in my mind, from my perspective, it's been one game at launch and then another game when the expansion releases, right? And typically a better game when the expansion releases, because that's when they come back. And, a lot of the stuff that I said is kind of stingy and bothersome and just a kind of PETA, they pull some of that back somehow. The thing I'm concerned about this time, though, is let's say they get everybody lathered up, right, and super excited about the, Michael Bayification of Diablo. The difference this time around is now those people are going to be wired into season passes, battle passes, right, microtransactions. And so I worry that there won't be the same incentive that they've had in the past to come back and do some of that kind of heavy reworking that they've done in past iterations in that expansion, because they're going to have a player base that they're going to be trying to retain, right, with continuity and longevity. And so that may give them different incentives in kind of how they handle Diablo 4 over its life cycle than how they handled Diablo 2 and 3.
I feel like what's going to really make or break this game is seasons and getting content. Because if you harp back on Path of Exile, if you were a first-time player at Path of Exile and you're like, okay, I beat the game. No, you didn't. You beat the tutorial, which is 10 acts of the tutorial. Now it's the actual game time. So you've got maps, bossing, uber bosses, pinnacle bosses, delve, simulacrum, fucking heists, harvest. There's like 10 or 12 different layers of endgame that you can honestly play each and every single time you do a season, which is a fresh new character. And every single level of endgame that you do could be incredibly different. You can even do what's called SSF, which is solo self-found, to where there's no trading, there's no economy, there's no trading at all. And then you just, everything that you get is whatever you find yourself. And that's what you use, or you do it in hardcore. Diablo has to come in and really show off endgame, because Diablo 3's endgame is, hey, We got rifts. You like rifts? Good. Here's more rifts. That's it. And it's like they can't just do that. I honestly believe that if this game, the day one release of this game is not June 6th. It's the day that season 1 actually starts. When they launch their first season and people have already beaten the content and they've done the end game there, if they don't do something season-wise to add a new mechanic like PoE does, then that game is not going to last very long. And PoE 2 is going to come out and eat its lunch. Because the thing is, every 3 months, Path of Exile launches a brand new expansion that is free, that is fully integrated into the game, and then it provides an entire new endgame system every 3 months into that game for free. And PoE is a free game completely. So if 5 guys in New Zealand can do this, I'm exaggerating, but if a small team in New Zealand can do this on their own, there is no excuse why Blizzard, a historic developer, cannot keep up or do better. There's none.
Well, we do need to get to the end game. I do think that's the big question that I have is with 100+ dungeons, and the devs pushed back on some of the criticism of the dungeons and said, listen, you're playing base level dungeons. These will look completely different when you get into the higher nightmare levels. And you can even be doing a nightmare dungeon and a higher sigil can drop for a different dungeon. So I think they were smart there too. Like you can't just grind, oh, this is the best dungeon to grind. Like it's going to make you sort of, go around and have some diversity there. I think the PvP could potentially be extremely trollish, which PvP people kind of love that. You go to do this altar thing and all these guys are going to show up because it sends a signal. So I think there's a chance that they can give the people that want to dive beneath that accessible surface, because seasonal content, seasonal characters, all of that. I've even argued against the seasonal format as far as why do I have to make a new character if you're adding new story, if you're expanding Sanctuary. It'd be dope to have a main and kind of treat it like an MMO, but they seem to want to push back against it being viewed as an MMO. It kind of feels like one in disguise. What's that?
You ever played WoW?
No, I lost all my friends to WoW when I was trying to play Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament. They all
Hey, my man. Hey, listen, my man. Quake 3 and UT. That's it.
UT.
I also played WoW too.
One of the things that I'm not clear on, and I've read what they've put out, and I don't have the takeaway that maybe some people have. My understanding from what I read is that that's what's going to give you new characters, new classes, new adventures. But they talk about expansions and seasons separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So seasons, right, in Diablo 3, and Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? Seasons, to me, as far as what I can tell, isn't really that much new. It's you can start a new character, you can replay the campaign, and we're going to put some tweaks and challenges and other things, right? Some small variations in there, right, to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I just completed season 28 on a monk. I got to like Paragon 185, and I'm on like Torment 11, and it's boring because it's the same thing over and over. I haven't added any new mechanics or anything to it, and that's the issue.
Right. So my understanding is the way Diablo 4 is going to roll, there's going to be expansions, which, maybe they'll come out concurrently with seasons, but there will be a separate configuration item, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to be paid, right? So people are going to buy expansions just like they did with Diablo 3, right? When you had to buy to get the other two classes. I don't know how frequent those are going to be, but when one person has an expansion and the other person doesn't, the person who has the expansion, I think, can invite the person who doesn't, but that person who doesn't necessarily have access to all the same content if it expands levels, if it expands gear types, etc. So, how they're going to keep a unified community, I'm not sure. But my point is that, if you onboard into the game, just playing the seasons isn't necessarily the get, right? You have to buy the expansions and then play the seasons. And that by definition has to mean that there's a different valuation, right, that consumers are going to put on the expansion versus the season. And from what I've seen, to me, at least from my, my perspective and the background playing the game, what's really value added, right, is the expansion, right? It's weird that the seasons are going to give you like additional cosmetics, and I'm like, well, Diablo has always been cosmetics. Like you pick up a new piece of gear and it changes your appearance, right? That's the cosmetic. Why do I need a seasonal tier of additional cosmetics on top of the innate native behavior of the game? So I don't know. It's just gonna be interesting to see how the whole thing turns out.
Just spend the money, bro.
Just see. Well, the seasons actually sound substantive from where I sit. We're obviously gonna have to play them, but they're saying that like things will change in Sanctuary. There'll be new quests, new adventures, new story elements. The world will change and expand. They said that within the first hour, you'll be experiencing new story elements as well. And they're totally free. Obviously, they're going to want you to be buying Battle Pass. I mean, that's the whole point, right? It's free, and then you can buy the season pass. That's kind of how you subsidize it. I would imagine expansions are annual. That's probably also when they add a new class. So I do think live service ongoing element, it's just going to turn on that hinge. Does the season do enough so that it doesn't just feel like come grind rifts? It needs to feel like, oh wow, the world is changing. They've said they want a season to make you want to come back and have a different experience. That's something that they've really stressed, is different experience. And then they kept using this one phrase that we're going to have like a lasting impact on the world. I don't know what that means. Like they're talking about strongholds changing, and then suddenly it's a social hub, and then these seasons sound like there's going to be a significant change to the game. It's not just going to be here's a pretty outfit, come grind new characters. I think they're going for more depth on the seasons.
Well, that to me is then what they need to nail, right? They need. I mean, anytime it's like this on the podcast, right? When the panel is here, all discussing, right, with a lack of clarity on what it is, right, then that tells me that the message has been muddled. And so to me, they need to get the messaging straight, right, so that we all have some clarity on what we're walking into, or else it's going to lead, at least for me, it's going to lead to me just kind of laying back and waiting, right, because I'm not going to be the guinea pig. Like I often tell Brap, look, finish coding your game, test your game, release your game, right? And then when I hear that there's no bugs and no, servers toppling over because of everybody trying to get on board, and in this case, I hear that, the seasonal content is worthwhile for me to make the investment of my time, right? Then I'll onboard into your game.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point, Game Logic. I mean, we've talked a lot about that. Off air, even with regards to the beta, but no, again, I'm not as hardcore at Diablo as Alex, but what little time I got to play with it, because again, I got pulled back to Call of Duty, Alex. I enjoyed it, but again, I haven't really, I haven't played Diablo as much as Alex, but for me, I think just the ability to kind of pick up and play and just enjoy the content was satisfactory for me from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, they nailed the gameplay.
Yeah.
They nailed it. Right.
Yeah.
They nailed, like, my one nitpick and gripe would be like the animation for when gold comes out looks really shitty. It's like a low PNG that they used, but like that's like me like nitpicking.
Yeah.
But like I feel like the biggest issue for me is itemization and depth. Unless their Paragon skill tree really is pulling from PoE, and there's a lot of things that I can like unfold and do more with, then it's gonna be like, I'm gonna play it every season or so and get my character to Paragon whatever and get a cosmetic and then just uninstall it and go back to PoE. Which is not what I want.
Alex, you played the beta on PC, right?
Yeah.
And Lana, what platform did you play on?
PC and PS5. I switched between the two. Depending, my kids were using my PS5, so I was having to go to my PC and play when they were using them.
Okay. And Brap, what did you play on?
I played it on PS5.
That's cap.
Come on, man. I there was reasons why I did PS5. So
I know, I was-
but
I was setting that up.
No, I
just
know.
to get to that.
no. But speaking of Cap, I do want to get on to, Alex. I know I said I really wasn't going to talk too much about ABK, and I'm kind of not really talking about it but I do want to talk about these 11 members of Congress that are raising concerns to the Biden administration, saying that Sony's business practices are in Japan are blocking U.S. companies from competing in that country's gaming market. That company in particular being Xbox or Microsoft. And so this was a report that came out, came out 2 days ago. And, Leno, you had some great coverage on this today, as a matter of fact. And by the way, Leno, thank you, by the way. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on, too, is thank you for providing some critical analysis to this whole ABK thing, man. To actually thinking about this in a very rational manner, as opposed to the Jim Ryan shaking his boots, he's scared, and all the other stuff that we see out there on the Twitters and from different YouTubers and things like that. Lita Khan should be fired, that kind of stuff. So I just want to say I appreciate the coverage that you've done on this particular topic. It's nice to get a level-headed perspective, and actually someone who's actually done their homework and done some analysis and read through the documents, as opposed to someone who's just going to a fan cast and just pulling talking points out and then running with it on Twitter. So thank you for that.
What are you trying to say?
What's that?
What are you trying to say?
Hey, I'm just saying that Lono's done a good job.
What are you trying to say?
Hey, I'm just saying that Lono has done a good job.
You gotta go fuck. You know, Garrett.
No, I know. But I just want to say that he's done a really good job at covering this stuff from a very level-headed perspective. So thank you, Lono. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wasn't really prepared for what happened because I was avoiding the topic. Like,
I know,
my producer and I would be brainstorming, and he'd be like, well, some new stuff came out about the deal, and I would literally go to my dashboard and say, when did we talk about it last? And if it had been a month, I would say, okay, let's talk about it, because it drove me crazy. Like, I felt like I was constantly dealing with fandom instead of dealing with facts. And I one morning came back, I completely scrapped the show that I was going to do, and I just literally wrote a monologue of I was so annoyed with how the press was slanting everything. I was like, I don't even care which side you're cheering for, just please present the facts. Don't misquote people, don't, and I think I maybe went a little too far, because I directly called out some members of the press, and I was like, this is just bad coverage. And I did not expect the response that I got. People were like throwing my clips in people's faces, and I was like, okay, oh gosh, maybe I went too far. So I kind of dialed back, and it's less now about me trying to sort of indict the gaming press, because I have a bone to pick with the gaming press. And I think that they're an embarrassment, just like our news media in America is an embarrassment. But I'm trying not to make it about that. I'm trying to say, okay, here's everything that's going on. Here's what was said. Because, I mean, I even covered the CMA thing the other day. I was like, look, this is a win for Xbox. Like, this is what they wanted to see. But I also think this is what Sony wanted to see. I think Sony wanted to see Call of Duty made central to the deal. And I think that's maybe why they've gone quiet. Maybe that's what they were pushing for all along. I don't know. I think they tried to block it. I think they got to a point where they realized they weren't going to be able to. So I wasn't expecting people to like clamor to me, like, and now it's funny because I tweeted about The Last of Us port being bad, and I have people yelling at me thinking I'm like anti-Sony. And then if I publish anything or do anything that's like, I guess it's so like I kind of get called. I get called both. I said something about, I forget what it was. I said something about a certain game, and they're like, buy a PS5, and I was like, I have two. What do you mean? Like, what do you want me? Like, they just assume that you are on the other side if you're not sort of agreeing with their viewpoint.
That is so spot on, Lone. I mean, we get it here a lot too. People are like, "Oh, Brap, you're a pony," and meanwhile, I have like 3 Xboxes in my house. I am on Halo Infinite quite a bit, almost. Well, not recently. I haven't been on there every night recently. But prior to well, I would say as of 2 weeks ago, I was on like Halo Infinite every night, playing season 3, and so it's funny. It's like if you're not pushing whatever narrative they're pushing, then you must be on the other side of the fence, and that's just it's so ridiculous. But I do want to get into.
I mean, imagine
yeah.
not having a single console but getting called an Xbot. That's like the best part.
Yes.
Not owning a single console, dedicating only playing PC games, playing nothing but ARPGs and Counter-Strike and Dota 2. And apparently that makes me an Xbox.
Yes,
fanboy.
it does.
Oh,
It does, Alex. Yeah, and Logic to you as well, man. I mean, you provide some very well thoughtful analysis of this deal and kind of the regulatory process as well. So it's just nice to see those things. You just don't see it a lot with the conversation that's going around as relates to this merger acquisition. But I do want to bring up some really kind of interesting points that these that the congressmen are bringing up here, and that they're saying that Sony PlayStation has 90% of the high-end console market in Japan. Signs deals designed to keep hit Japanese games away from Microsoft, Xbox, and this may such moves may violate Japan's antitrust laws. I think the and you talked about this on your show, Lona, the interesting thing about this particular complaint is that
say it.
What's that?
Go ahead, say it. Come on, say it.
Is that they are. What about Nintendo in the Japanese market? And the fact.
Oh, that's not what I wanted you to say.
Well, okay, well, hold on. And the fact that also the fact that if historically speaking, right, if you look at what Microsoft's done over the last 20 years in Japan, they've struggled. They've struggled to make inroads.
That's not what I want you to say either. Come on, say what you want to say.
No, that's what I was going to say.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
say
no,
the
that's
thing
what I
you
was going to
wanna
say.
No, you're smiling. I can hear it behind
No,
you.
no, actually.
Say
No,
the
actually,
thing
that's
you want to say.
No, that's what I was going to say.
That those 11 senators are on the payroll.
Oh, no. I wasn't going to say that. But I think majority of those senators are from the great state of Washington, Washington State, where Microsoft is headquartered. So I think the biggest thing is this idea that that one, Sony controls 98% of the gaming market in Japan, which we know isn't true. There's Nintendo. They've pulled Nintendo out of the mix to kind of drive home that point. But also, if you look at the performance of Xbox in Japan over the 20 years, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and look at the hardware sales number. I think they're actually doing better this generation, Xbox is, in Japan than they were, last generation with the Xbox One. But they've always struggled the last 20 years to make any kind of inroads in Japan, and they've partnered with Japanese developers. Hell, they dropped the bag in front of what's his name? The guy that started. Oh shit! Why am I drawing a blank here? The studio behind Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. Jesus, who was that now? Jeez, I'm getting old.
Mist Walker Studios?
Miss Walker, thank you. Sakaguchi-san, I think it was. Sakaguchi, thank you, Josh. They dropped the bag in front of his, they're the 360 generation, and they got those games.
Who's Josh?
So, what's that?
Who's Josh?
Josh in the live chat. Josh Ares? I don't pronounce that
I gave you that answer, motherfucker. Don't you fucking talk like that to me ever again.
No, that was not you, Alex. That was actually Josh. You were late, sir. But this idea that the exclusion of Nintendo, which is kind of odd in this complaint, and again the
hang on, I gotta say something because chat thinks they're making a profound point, and I can't.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, go ahead, Lono.
Cook him, Lono.
Listen, because they're all using the same phrasing, so I know they heard it from somebody that they like to listen to. They're all saying that PlayStation took Nintendo out of the conversation. Nintendo, PlayStation's own arguments coming back on them, and it's such a misrepresentation of what is going on.
PlayStation never did that.
No, hang on. There was a proceeding where PlayStation did not want Nintendo to be included because they were attempting to make argumentation about Call of Duty. So they were attempting to say, listen, if you're going to compare us, you got to compare us to Xbox. You can't put Nintendo on the table. This high-end console market.
Yep, okay.
PlayStation was also making the argument that Call of Duty is endemic to our revenue streams. Nintendo has no bearing on that discussion because Call of Duty doesn't exist on Nintendo. Now, to properly understand what the Congress letter is asserting, you can't just say, oh, well, it's on Sony, their argument's coming back to bite them. You actually have to read what the letter states. They are attempting to claim the thesis, the premise of the letter is that there is an imbalance in the Japanese video game market. And they support this with one stat. Microsoft only has 2% in the market share of high-end consoles. But they include that statistic, that 2% statistics, in the same sentence where they claim Microsoft launched Xbox in Japan in 2002. Despite 20 years of investment, they only have 2% of the high-end console market. And then they go on to say that Sony holds 98% of the Japanese market. So they're being extremely slick with that statistic. It's like, hang on a minute. The high-end console market is not representative of the video game market in Japan. It's one statistic, and you'd have to look at all of the other mitigating circumstances as to why this generation, Gen 9, you're having a disparity of Xbox in Japan. Maybe look at the chipset shortages. Maybe look at COVID. Maybe look at the last 3 years of demand struggles and supply struggles. There's so many other circumstances that would lead to why Xbox is struggling in Japan. It has nothing to do with exclusive contracts with Sony. And if you want to invoke exclusive contracts that Sony gets, why is Nintendo kicking the ever-loving crap out of both Sony and Xbox in the Japanese market? They don't have a single one of those contracts, and they dominate in an astounding fashion. So this idea that, like, well, Sony's the one that excluded Nintendo, was Sony attempting to claim that the high-end console comparison was the entirety of the Japanese video game market? Because that's what our genius congressmen are trying to do. That's the problem with the argumentation.
Yeah, and we should also point out that there are two separate letters actually that went to the U.S. Trade Representative, right, and the Secretary of Commerce, one from each party, right. So the one that a lot of people are keying on that is from people representatives from Washington State, a mix of senators and representatives, was the Democratic letter, and then the Republican letter has a mix of 4 different representatives from different states.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me grab the super chat here real quick. They followed the super chat from Patrick Hugh. Thank you, Patrick. Says Lono Cooking. Thank you for that super chat, sir. So Alex, not Alex, I'm sorry, Logic, what are your thoughts on this too, man? Like, I'll get to you in a second, Alex. But what are your thoughts here, Logic, on Congress pushing forth this letter? I went down the rabbit hole with people on Twitter, and they were like, oh, this is bad for Sony. This is going to damage their reputation. They should have never fought this deal as hard. I saw crazy things like Sony, they're in trouble. The chickens are coming home to roost, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think probably the first thing to mention is because there were some pretty horrible extrapolations. So these letters have gone nowhere, right, beyond the borders of the United States. They were letters to the U.S. Trade Representative, which is an ambassador level appointed political official, and then, like I said, to the Secretary of Commerce. And the responses were from the USTRs, she'll look into it. And so these are not complaints that have gone to Japan. Just like our own FTC, the Japan regulatory agency is responsible for policing, industry and commerce in its own sovereign nation. So you can imagine how one country is going to take a tattletale from another country to pull back the covers on one of their own corporations for an accusation like this. I don't know, and I don't believe, and I'm not banking on there being a huge ton of drama coming out of this in Japan. The thing that I think is the most concerning thing to me is And one analogy that I think is relevant is the ESRB, right? And so, because a lot of people weren't around during then, when the ESRB came into being, it didn't just naturally kind of natively and organically occur. And it didn't just happen out of a lot of agreement amongst the video game industry. It came about, finally, because they were being given a ton of pressure from political representatives to get their house in order. And many people strongly suggested that the industry figure out how to police itself, rather than there be a lot of government regulation that would intervene and kind of set up structures to gate the sale of video games to minors, right? And so the movie industry had figured this out with the MPAA rating system, and the video game industry had not, at a time where it was getting a lot of similar pressure. And my point of that analogy is that in most cases, what most industries want is they want the ability to police themselves, right? And to have boards, to have some type of industry standard so that they don't get a lot of government intervention and regulation. So I question the motivation, and I question the logic, right, in stirring up a bunch of senators, to stirring up a bunch of representatives to have them take action that invites more regulation into a space, even if it's beyond our shores, particularly when that intervention is unlikely to result in anything that's going to move the needle about the Xbox market share in Japan, of all things. Whenever you do something like that, number one, you expend political capital, which is finite. There's not an unlimited amount. And I just don't know if this type of action, which could definitely be seen as kind of petty, was worth the time and is gonna get any juice for the squeeze. Now, I'm certain that a ton of people view it as like, well, Sony did this and Sony did that. I think the difference is
that's
that
exactly that's being spun logic, by the way. That's what I saw today. It's
right.
Yeah.
So first of all, those are the type of thoughts I go through when policing my own kids, right? But corporations shouldn't be children. The difference is that Microsoft took an action. Microsoft initiated an action to spend $70 billion to acquire a company that required, because of the way things work in our country, them to traverse through the path of a government regulatory agency, the FTC. That was not optional. And I say the FTC, but really the antitrust division, right, which means it could have landed on the FTC or the Department of Justice. And similar regulatory agencies in other countries. Those agencies then extended an invitation to Sony and other competitors in the market to respond, right, with their concerns. And in cases where audiences were asked for, had direct audiences with those competitors. That is different than setting up a meeting with a representative, voluntarily walking into their office and saying, hey, I don't know if you care or not, but so-and-so is sticking their hands in your cookie jar. So I think the motivations are different. I think the optics are different. And I don't know if it makes a lot of sense or if there's a lot to come out of it. A lot of comments have been thrown around about, waste of taxpayers' money and waste of taxpayers' time. I can rattle off a list of 10 things that are more important for our country to be worried about right now than whether or not Microsoft is set up the best to compete in Japan. Because even if Sony wasn't running around making those exclusives, I don't really know that Xbox would be doing that much better in Japan with regards to market share in any way that would move the needle for a $2 trillion company for which the revenue gain out of that region would not be of really great significance.
Yeah, that's a great. I see people in the live chat talking about the U.S. Japan trade deal, that the U.S. has a right to look into this. I don't think anyone in this panel is saying that they don't. I don't think anyone said that.
They don't, but as a for instance, I'm currently more concerned about building chip foundries within the United States in order to help us compete against China, right? That to me is more important than worrying about whether or not Xbox is competing in Japan.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Like Game Logic, I don't disagree at all. Alex, what are your thoughts on the Congressional the Congress in this letter.
I think it's a circus, and I'm fucking here for it. All I'm here for is to see grown-ass adult fucking men lose their goddamn minds about a multi-million, multi-billion, multi-trillion-dollar corporation that sees them nothing more as a wallet that the company wants to goat see on a consistent basis, and they still fucking can't figure that shit out. I'm here for that. I'm here to make fun of them. I'm here to fucking shit on them. That's what I'm here for, and I fucking cannot wait because it is great. This is a fucking clown show.
Let me add just something to that. I know people are tired to hear me talking, but just to kind of expand the optics on this, right? So the notion that Microsoft representatives would set up a meeting and walk in and talk to representatives from their home state is not unusual, right? The companies that I work for have have regular meetings, right, with representatives from our state, right? Because the industry in the state, where companies that I've worked for are a large footprint, right, have topics of concern, right, to talk to those representatives, topics that they want those representatives to go fight for them for. Microsoft has a ton of concerns, right, that they would want audience and time with those representatives for. Microsoft would have concerns about getting enough of the cloud business, right, that the government has made available, right, to different cloud service providers. They would have the ongoing HoloLens problems, right, that they had in providing HoloLens kits to the Army. They would have things that they provide to the government for running machinery controls and industrial controls for, I won't say about all the things that they provide them for, but let's say running gas turbine engines or other large pieces of machinery that the government uses. They would have things to talk to the government about plays that they make in the industrial infrastructure of our company, right? Power, oil, things of that nature. For this topic, to be the one that jettisoned a bunch of representatives to get off of their butt to go rattle somebody's chains about, again, this isn't really top of the order for even Microsoft, right? With a company who provides a lot of capability to the U.S. government and has its fingers in a lot of pots and provides a lot of services. Just again, I think I just feel like there's way more important things that Microsoft would have, had to engage them on.
Just the risk fact in was $400 billion these companies are supposed to use to invest in fiber that infrastructure is fully behind the rest of 27th, I think, in the world, because the beautiful net company consolidation has allowed.
Loda, you're botting a little bit, I think. I don't know if anyone else can hear that.
I'm lagging? Oh.
Yeah.
No, now you're fine.
I was making such a point. That's so unfortunate. I was saying that. Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah, you're better now. Yep.
Okay. Discord's having some issues today. They pushed out some update, and it's causing all kind of issues. Saying that it's hubris or how much consolidation is in a spot.
Your body again, Leno.
Oh my
the second he goes into the perfect
yes, as soon as you start getting on the rant, it's like Microsoft's listening to you speak right now, Lono. They don't want you making this point.
I know they're shutting me down. I'm gonna try it again.
Say it now.
I'm gonna try it again.
They want you to use Teams.
Hey guys, just jump into my Ventrilo server. It'll work.
Yeah. Or Roger Wilco. We need Roger Wilco back.
You're good now.
I was saying the sheer hubris to ignore the fact that in 2014, all of these internet service providers basically didn't take the $400 billion that they were supposed to invest in a fiber optic future. They didn't do that. And our internet service infrastructure in America is 27th in the world. So it looks, I think,
consolidation is great.
Yeah, consolidation's great. It's our entire internet infrastructure has been stuck for 10 years because we let all these ISPs consolidate. So the irony and the hubris to point your finger in Japan's face and be like, "Oh, hey, Xbox is having a hard time over there." Take care of your own house first. We have so many bigger issues at stake. This is, as Alex called it, it's a freaking circus.
I don't disagree. It's
Mhm.
it's it's I think this is political theater at best. I mean, to be frank, I think it's a waste of time. I think I agree with you, Game Logic. There's other more important things to address. Mass shootings in the U.S. Another one happened at a school. There's that, and there's other things that are more pressing. But yeah, it's just I'm at a and I Alex, I know before the show you were like, oh, are we gonna talk about this? Look, I at a point now where I just let's just get this deal through. Let's just get this deal through at this point because
Just get it done.
a lot of the takes, a lot of the conversation around this has just been just atrocious. It's been bad, really bad. Like from YouTubers, even some media types. It's just and the conversation on Twitter. It's been terrible. I've never seen people project so much emotion at corporations. And you're right, Alex. Like these companies don't care about us, but people act like the corporation. They care. Their sole job in life is to separate us from our wallets, and that's it. That's it. They don't care about us.
People got mad, okay, that I said piracy is okay because it is the only way you actually own the product you've purchased today. And people actually got mad and defended corporations not selling you a product that you want to buy that you now have to buy from scalpers at 200% times the price.
Listen, I've been trying to tell everybody, look at the way that Microsoft treats Microsoft Office. Like, look at the way they treat it. Look at the way that Adobe treats Creative Suite. That is Microsoft's end game, and nobody sees it. In 20 years, you will not buy a game on their ecosystem. There will be subscription tiers. I think that's Microsoft's future. That's how they like to treat software. You grab stuff that's endemic. You grab stuff that's super interwoven into an economic structure like Microsoft Office, and then you put it behind a subscription fee. Like, I think that's why they stress Game Pass at a loss. They stress Game Pass at a loss because I think that's their plan long term, is to be the subscription routes to gaming.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Froggy T, right? Yeah, you're part of the problem with this conversation. I'll just leave it at that because
What did he say?
He's saying Brad pretend like he's not participating in the clown car activities. I mean, look.
I don't know, man. You've been making some salacious tweets lately.
Hey, man, I'm Latino. We make spicy tweets. Alex, you know this, man. You're from Cuba. You know this.
Listen. I make salacious tweets. Lono learned that firsthand very quickly. However, what you make, I don't know, man. I don't know if you just got into a dictionary all of a sudden. You start saying words you don't know the meanings for. Like, what's going on here? Talk to me.
No, I'm just tired of the just the sensationalism over this stuff. Like the whole Jim Ryan is scared, and I can't believe that they're against this deal. Lita Khan should be fired. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's like you guys haven't been paying attention to what's happened the last 20-something odd years in mergers and acquisitions. Like, none of this is new.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I got a lot of hate. I got a lot of hate when I said, look, this deal's probably going to go through, and just watch. One of the first things that'll probably happen in the year that follows is you will see lots of studios downsized, shuttered, shut down. That'll be like first order of business is to reduce operating costs, because that's what you do after a merger. And then more reverberations will be that other companies are going to feel like, well, we got to make alliances now. We got to buy up. We got to consolidate, because how else are you going to compete? And that gives you less options as a consumer. And the only silver lining I trotted out today was I could see a future where this firmly cements Sony as the premium platform for, like, you buy games at a top shelf price. It's top shelf AAA gaming, and Microsoft kind of becomes the low entrance fee gaming option, right? That's it's a lot of quantity, right?
McDonald's.
Yeah, they become the McDonald's, and then Sony can be gourmet, and then Nintendo is just always going to be Nintendo.
Can we not with the food analogies, please?
All right, no food analogies. I think a car analogy works honestly
All
better
right,
because
Oh my God, no!
there's always
Food analogies.
There's always a consumer ready to buy the entrance level car, but there's still room for luxury cars, right? There's still a market for it. And I think if it becomes more distinct that you have entrance level, more budget style, like low cost gaming on Game Pass and on Xbox's ecosystem, that's great. There's customers for that. But then there's those of us that want AAA full price games, like we want premium level games. And then you got Nintendo. Like Nintendo's just gonna probably always do their own thing. They're anomalous at some level.
Yeah.
I think that's probably good for us in the end because you'll have three completely different ways to approach gaming. The biggest concern I have is I just don't like property under Microsoft's ownership. I don't feel like they do a good job with their studios or their property. So you're going to see a lot of companies and a lot of games go. This is the thing I said. Everybody loved The Last of Us on HBO, right? Imagine if season 2 of HBO The Last of Us got sold to the people who wrote for like Obi-Wan on Disney Plus. You'd be pretty upset, right? You'd be like, oh my gosh, that's not who worked on it. That's not who they created such a bad season of Obi-Wan. You'd be upset, and that's how I think some of us feel. It's like we're seeing a lot of property go to Microsoft, and I don't have confidence in their ability to own and operate gaming companies. They have not proven themselves. I don't know where people get their confidence, honestly, in Microsoft's ability to buy all this property and do good things with it, because their track record right now isn't just incredibly shaky. I don't see where the confidence comes from.
It comes from those fanatical podcasts where they pom-pom each other and say everything's going to be good and pat each other on the back. That's where the confidence comes from.
So for me, I don't feel like there's no winner for me in all of this, right? It's just like I don't care. I'm going to play everything no matter what. I think for me, my big investment emotionally is Blizzard. Like, I just don't want them under Kotick anymore. I just don't. I don't want them under that leash. I don't want them under there. I just want them to do what they used to do and go back and make good fucking expansions and good fucking games. And what I really would like to see, this is like coming from like my inner fucking neckbeard self, is I want WoW on Game Pass.
Neckbeard?
Yeah.
Oh
I want World of Warcraft on fucking consoles, and I want it on fucking Game Pass, and I want a WoW sub included in your Game Pass sub. So that way you can finally fucking inject new fucking players into that game and actually have a community in that game that fucking Final Fantasy XIV is just destroying all of that.
Alex, are you from New York or Florida, sir?
A lot of New Yorkers live in Florida.
No, a lot of F-bombs, but go ahead, man.
Yeah, you know, it's just be like that sometimes. Have you seen my live streams?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just like that's the kind of shit that I want, and like
God,
just Blizzard coming back and being Blizzard. I'm looking at it from my perspective. This shit to me means fucking nothing. I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna steal everything anyways. I don't care. So like everything else in this whole thing and like this emotional investment to me is insanity.
It is
But I'm
insanity.
here for the show, man.
Well, that's why,
I'm here
and
for
that's
the
what I'm
content.
commenting on. Like people get upset when you say the sky's blue. People yell at you, say, "Why are you defending the sky being blue?" So that's why when you ask me why I've been tweeting what I've been tweeting, that's why, because
Yeah, but you know, you've been your tweets have been even I've been looking at your tweets like
Well, and listen. We have our answer. I asked a simple question. Where's your confidence come from? Why are you so confident that Microsoft's going to grab all this? And I get asked the question about Sony. You know, what track record? Look at how many studios Sony has closed. Well, that's not an answer to the question. The answer to the question is, what is Xbox's track record right now? They almost shut the damn division down 10 years ago. Like, what's their track record that makes you think, oh, yeah, this is really going to turn things around? Like, I don't know. I look at 343 and I say, oh, my, like, cautionary tale, this 18-month contractual attrition rate, like the way that Microsoft treats software just won't work in the creative realm. I don't know. It's not hate. I've got a longer history with Xbox, and there's been a migratory effect. I just have not done much with their system because I don't feel like they deliver anything that I want to engage with. Nothing's delivered at the quality that I want to engage with. And so I started out streaming. My streaming career started on an Xbox. I have a much longer history with that ecosystem.
So, Lone, I'm willing to bet that at some point, though, you didn't feel this way about Microsoft. That I would be willing to bet that's probably around the 360 generation.
That's literally my road into console gaming is the 360. I was PC. I got tired of having to, like, there were games I couldn't play because I needed to upgrade all of my stuff, and my friends wanted to play World at War, Call of Duty, and we all got 360s, and that was my inroad into console. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've been like, I don't know what Xbox is doing, but they're not doing anything for me. Their games just don't cut it, and the way they treated one of their shining star banner titles, the way they treated Halo, I have zero confidence in their ability to own and kick out good content with studios. Look at how many creative directors have left studios under their ownership. I think there's a reason for that. I think working under Microsoft ownership is just squelching. If you read any of the comments from people that worked at 343, it's a cautionary tale, man.
But that's why we don't have to worry about consolidation, right? Because anytime a developer who has worked in AAA at any point in their career leaves, then that creates another AAA studio.
I know exactly
That's
where
true.
I know where you go with that, Lodge, because that's also the talking point. Oh well, you know.
And just to be clear, that was a joke. That's not the way it works.
No, it's not, and that's why I'm laughing because that's the talking point. By the way, someone said that we were snobs. I don't know who that was or who that was directed at, but someone's
I'm fine with that. I own it. I have zero problem with it whatsoever.
I don't either. I like.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm like
better than you.
Look,
yes, I'm better than you.
Look,
absolutely.
I like nice things. I dropped $6,000 in a month on gaming last year. I'm fine with that. I am totally fine. I'm cool.
Yeah, but just to caveat, it's not. I love you, Alex. I appreciate it. I'm not saying that I'm better than you, but I have no problem with being. I have no problem being called snobbish.
Look, I am the person that just says what you're thinking. Okay, we're better than you.
Yeah, my point is like to go back to what
better now.
My God.
To go back to Lana said, right, and you know, I apologize for people in the chat who have heard it, right, ad nauseum for the last 15 months, right? The concern is just the same thing that Lano has said, that this shift of power, right, and it's a shift of power in terms of influence, in terms of how it may drive MAU, monthly active users, and the knock-on effect of that MAU to total install base, right? It's not going to be some fell swoop pendulum shift, right? But it will have a trickle effect, right, over the next few years, right, if it goes down this way. The concern is just like Lano said, right, with, you know, production prices, production costs are already increasing. You're going to consolidate. This is one thing that, you know, I some of this stuff crystallized for me when I went back and I looked at cases in 1967 that the FTC had prosecuted before, things called product extension mergers, right? Procter and Gamble, and
hey, you can't compare bleach.
right.
Yeah.
And I think General Mills or General Food, something like that. But you know, the big problem, you know, is that there's been this big hand wave to say this is a vertical merger, right? But the problem is that it's not a pure sterile vertical merger, right? Microsoft is a games publisher, and therefore, as a games publisher, by definition, this is a fact. I'm not going to argue this, right? They are a competitor to Activision, who is also a games publisher. And so again, by mathematical fact, again, not going to argue with it, when you consolidate them, you will go from 10 companies that control 65% of the revenue in the gaming market to 9 companies that control 65% of the revenue in the gaming market. That is consolidation. That is less choice. That is fewer suppliers. Now, people will say, oh, well, you know, consolidation is BS, as one person wrote on one of my threads today, right? You know, I don't want to hear about consolidation. Like 4 people just left, right? The Playground Games. 4 developers who have worked AAA does not spawn 4 AAA game studios, right? In order for a game studio to be AAA in air quotes, it's got to have funding, it's got to have backing, it needs to have probably venture capital if it's not owned by someone. It needs to have a contract to actually build a game, right? It's not a AAA studio because some dude left the company is now mortgaging his house so that he can make payroll to pay 5 developers, right? So no, when people leave these companies, that doesn't automatically create a one-to-one, right, respawn of a AAA studio. When you take an industry where you have a large concentration of the available revenue and concentrated in a very small number of companies, and then for the remainder of the revenue, the remainder of that 35%, you have a crap ton of companies, which means all of those additional companies now have a much smaller slice of that remaining available 35%. You create an imbalance in the market, right? So that type of effect is what we're going to have, and that's what's going to potentially drive the thing that Lano talked about, where he talks about people are going to build alliances. There's going to be additional purchases. People aren't going to be able to survive and stand alone, right, on their own as standalone companies, because again, not everybody likes to mortgage their house so that they can make payroll, right, for X number of developers. So that is the concern, right, that I've cited, and that may potentially come out of this. And it's not just native and organic and naturally it's going to work out just to be okay, because just because 10,000 freaking games get posted to Steam every year, that is not representative that the competitive market, right, is healthy, right? That just means that there's a lot of bad things going on. When we go back in history and we look back to the collapse of the gaming industry, right, in 1983, I think it was
due to one game, sir, E.T.
Right. Well, it wasn't due to one game.
No,
it was
I
due
know,
to
I know.
things that were happening across the whole market.
Yeah,
but that's the point, right? There were a crap ton of games being produced, but there were a crap ton of games being produced that didn't meet the quality level, right? And that caused the collapse of the gaming industry. And we were fortunate for the gaming industry to actually bounce back, right? Because it wasn't a guarantee that it was. So those are the type of dynamics and things that could potentially come out of this. And you know, when you talk about that, just like Lano said and like Brap has said, right, people go, oh, well, you're anti-Xbox. Well, no, I'm not anti-Xbox. As I sit here, I've paid for more Microsoft Windows licenses than most people spend on video games, right? So it's not about being anti-Xbox. It's about
that flex.
It's about seeing things that are going on in the antitrust and anti-competition space, and people responding and reacting to them, not because they're actually interested in how things work in this country. Now I'm ranting, right? As I saw part of the fan base, like, for Christ's sake, right, throw out a bill that came out in the 117th Congress, right, and try and make an issue out of it in an attempt to vilify Lina Khan.
That was painful, by the way, Gabe Lodge, because if you read the bill, it clearly states the date, like the date's right there.
Yeah, right. So
last
again,
congressional session.
Civics 101. It is the 118th Congress that's in session right now. The 117th Congress went out of session in early January. That bill never made it out of committee, and that bill is dead, right? You can go and you can look at the docket for the 118th Congress to see what bills, right, have been submitted, and that bill hasn't been resubmitted, right? So this goes back to my comment earlier in the tonight's show, where I talked about the focus of the gaming community is unfortunately, particularly in the first 3 months of this year, revolves around the drama, the gossip, the rumor, and the bullshit, right? And then it swirls around these items of misinformation, disinformation, right? And that's what people pick up from podcasts and then run around Twitter, right, and spread. You know, I mean, we may as well just invite the Russians into the country, right, and sit them down at keyboards and let them, right, use our Twitter accounts, because that's the kind of way that we behave and the type of things that we react to.
Jesus.
Lano, someone said in the live chat that you don't like indie games or something, or you don't play indie games. That's why you don't see value in Game Pass. That you said that?
I don't like indie games. I don't understand what that means.
I'd have to go back, and someone said that you said, I have to find it again, but I wanted to bring it up because I'm like, I've never heard you say that, but
I actually love indie games. I got to interview the head of ID at Xbox in 2019 E3 stage, and I actually praised that the other day because I know that they were consistently doing game demos on Xbox, and I think that'd be a great way to sort of bolster Game Passes. I think the price increase is unavoidable. Some of my favorite games are indie games. Like one of my favorite games of all time is The Blind Forest. So I have no idea why anybody thinks I don't like indie games. That's a weird one. I love them. I play them all the time.
It was Agnew. I'm gonna butcher this name. He says the problem is Lano doesn't play indie games, which is why he says that Game Pass has no quality, which is severely untrue.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're talking about. At one point had a first look channel, and it was dedicated to playing like new games when they come out, and he blitzed it with demos of little indie titles. It was something that I did all the time. I loved it. It was super fun. So I was playing all the demos from, I believe it was one of the showcases in the summer. They just showed a ton of indie titles, and I was playing them, promoting them. Mad Shot, I think, was one of them. There was Project Warlock. There, I promoted V Rising. What's the one that everybody was playing recently? The Vampire Survivors. I don't know what they're talking about. I play them and love them, and promote them all the time.
Yeah. Creature says, LOL, he thinks that because he got banned from our channel, maybe.
Oh, yeah. There are some people that'll follow me around. That may be what's going on.
I saw someone say to you, "Oh, I guess you can't ban anyone here, huh?" LOL. I saw someone say that earlier.
Oh, yeah. So maybe their butt's a little hurt. I'm not sure.
They're following you here now because you.
I have no
Hey
idea.
man, look, listen. Hey, check it out. If you gotta be a bunch of a fucking spurg to follow somebody around to another channel where you got fucking banned on to talk shit because you're such a fucking spurg, you deserve to get fucking banned. How about that?
Oh my
Fucking
god!
clown.
Oh my god! Look,
Let me go follow Lono around to another channel where I can't get banned because he banned me on his channel because I'm such a fucking pussy popping bitch. That's what it is. That's what you fucking are.
All right. We're not all right.
Jesus.
All right. So we got New York Alex in the house today. Instead of Florida Crippy Alex.
I know I kind of like that defending me like that. It kind of it turned me on. I appreciated that.
Did you?
Yeah, look, I do that really well. Don't worry. You're gonna see more of that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you do have some ban evaders in the chat apparently. So yeah, okay. That's Look, I don't disagree with you, Alex. It's a little strange if you've been banned and that you're following someone around that banned you. That's kind of that's interesting behavior. Interesting behavior to say the least. So
should give the mods something to keep them busy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Anyhow. Look,
see, Arctic knows what I'm fucking talking about. I'm just saying what y'all are thinking.
Oh my god.
This is why I will never get a sponsor.
You will get a sponsor, Alex, one day. Alex, you will get Alex, you will get it will be like some kind of like I don't know, like
Manscaped would make him.
Yeah, I was gonna say manscaping or be like some kind of like medical marijuana shop or something
It'll probably be like
Miami.
I'll be okay with that.
That sponsors Alex,
Or I'll be like Bad Dragon would be one I'd want. That'd be dope.
Yeah, or maybe I don't know, Alex.
Shout out to the Bad Dragons in the chat.
Maybe.
Don't Google Bad Dragon, please. Don't Google.
No. Someone said Pornhub would be a sponsor for you, Alex.
Yeah, true.
I guess I don't. Yeah. But yeah, maybe Manscaped, Alex. There you go.
No, I don't have the clout for that.
Okay. Maybe a sock company because you don't wear socks. There you go. Oh my goodness! All right, look, it's 11:30 here, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. But I want to give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening, and really appreciate the support as always. Do me a favor, smash that like button if you haven't done so already. Subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. I do Brap rants sporadically throughout the week, so I will probably do another one. Someone said Erodimus Pizza Hut for those pepperonis, Alex.
Nice.
But I do Brap rants on occasion throughout the week, I should say sporadically. So give me a follow at Brap_podcasts. And I always drop show information there, so that's probably the best place to interact and connect with me via social media. So want to grab this super chat from Gaming Forte, $5 super chat. Alex has spoken for Lano. If Alex hold on a sec here. If Alex was on camera, he would super chat $50. So thank you for that super chat, Gaming Forte.
Yeah, he just wants to see me naked again.
Oh, we don't want to see that, but
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. Forte, we want to see that. And then what'd you say?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh my god, Alex, I haven't done a show with you. I forget, man. That I don't think I was prepared for Alex today. Usually I am, I think. Usually I am, but not today.
No, you're not.
Yeah. Oh my god. Patrick Q with the files. Super says, great show, lads. Thank you for that, Patrick Q. Appreciate it. But yeah, thank you again, everyone. And a big shout out to our panel and our guests here tonight. Lano, thank you again, man, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Great having you on. Great talking video games with you. Please let everyone know where they can find you.
Best place to find me is Reforge Gaming. Anywhere you're trying to connect. Best place, obviously, if you're wanting to watch live shows, is Reforge Gaming on YouTube.
Awesome. Appreciate it. And then, oh no, it's Alex.
Yep.
Sir.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So,
yeah, that's it, right?
PC. That's it. PC port reviews, gaming news, fanboy videos,
OnlyFans
tutorials, OnlyFans. Yeah.
He goes under the name. He goes by the name of Himbo on OnlyFans, by the way.
Himbo. Yeah, that'll do it. Saturday live streams are fucking insane. So if you want to see something that's just fucking nuts, that's on Saturday live streams, and then that's it. Getting close to 50K subs, baby. Almost there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We're on the track.
Yeah. And then no, thank you again, Alex. It's always a pleasure having you on, man. It's nice having a fellow Latino. I don't interact with many Latino gamers, but it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
What are you trying to fucking go to like Club Moxie with me or something? Feather? What's up?
Yeah, that maybe a Freudian slip there, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, I'll be down in Florida this summer.
Don't visit me.
I'm going to come visit you, man. We're gonna break. Alex. We're gonna break bread.
It's Florida, and that's the wrong fucking state to fucking pull up on somebody. I'm just letting you know.
Oh yeah, right. No, we're gonna break bread. Also want to thank Game Logic. Logic, man, always a pleasure having you on, man. Let everyone know if you want to be found. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Tonight I do want to be found. I'm feeling a little spicy, so I'm back on Twitter under Game Logic. You can go there. There's a nice little video clip of Call of Duty there at the top of my feed. Some people catching smoke, so you can go check that out. The other thing I would invite your eyes to is there's also an analysis on there about the financial impact of the Microsoft ATVI merger. All this wailing and gnashing of teeth, over $7 billion of revenue in a $200 billion industry, may help you put that in perspective. There's also a thread in there about some comparison to, like I mentioned earlier, some antitrust, anti-competition cases by the FTC in 1967. Again, Procter and I think it was Clorox, Procter and Clorox bleach, and also General Foods. So you go there to kind of put some things additionally into perspective on the handling of product extension mergers and where the FTC has crossed this road before and was upheld by the Supreme Court. So you can feel free to check those out.
You're asking too much of people on Twitter, Logic.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hey, for people who are interested, look,
I thought it was great, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. It's about learning, right? It's about uncovering information, and then, as I always say on the show, I'm not here to tell you what you should think, right? I'm here to present information, and then you can take that information, hopefully use it as a thing to platform off of, to go find even more information, and then having read said information, right, make up your own mind, right, via critical thinking. So,
yeah, oh my, Froggy T, right? Just stop already, man. Just seriously, just give up, stop. Oh my goodness. All right. No, I appreciate that, Game Logic. And look, everyone, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy playing video games, because all that's what it's about. It's about having fun playing video games. It's supposed to be fun. So we'll catch you next time. Thank you, everyone.